A tranquil forest echoes with a terrifying roar. Two elves are running for their lives, a shadow close behind. The ranger Orntal activates every speed skill he has. His companion Malika can barely keep up with the pace. But Orntal is in a state of pure, unadulterated panic. He knows exactly what's hunting them from the darkness. Malika pleads with him to use his skills and save them. But with a single tear, he admits he's out of options. Just then, a new power awakens within his very soul. He unlocks the legendary skill, Flight of the Coward. Seriously? He grabs Malika's hand, telling her to hold on for dear life. And with the Flight of the Coward, they blast off towards safety. Back in the woods, the shadowy creature just stops. It lets out a sigh, probably thinking, well, that's no fun. They arrive at the village, screaming a warning to the guards. The news spreads like wildfire, sparking immediate panic. It reminds them all of a past tragedy, the return of the humans. The report is delivered to the Elven Council in their grand hall. An elder looks to a warrior named Riardan, whose help they now need. Riardan is reminded that a human's potential for growth makes any of them a threat. The elder recounts a devastating war started by humans. A grand alliance of races could barely hold them back. Their endless pursuit of levels had driven them to madness. The conflict only ended when the humans unleashed a final, self-destructive cataclysm. And for years there was peace until now. All eyes turn to Riardan, a ranger whose status is literally melancholia. The council explains that with their best warriors away, the village is exposed. They need him to handle this threat before the human grows too powerful. But Riardan is hesitant, still tormented by the losses of the past. An elder reminds him that he is the only elite ranger they have left. The weight of his past presses down on him. But with a heavy heart, he makes his choice. Riardan accepts the mission to hunt the human. Out in the vibrant woods, he and his squad lie in wait. He spots their target and signals for his team to hold. Activating a skill, he begins to identify the threat. It's a level 4 human also suffering from melancholia. Well, this is awkward. The boy drags his sword driven by a desperate hunger. Riardan watches from afar, knocking an arrow to his bow. He activates 2 skills, preparing a single decisive shot. With a silent prayer, Riardan unleashes his shot. The arrow of light screams through the forest. But at the last second, the human dodges the fatal blow. Riardan is stunned. For a low level, the kid is fast. Luckily, he had a backup plan. Death from above. The human twists and turns, evading the deadly barrage. But one of the arrows still finds its mark in his back. Seeing an opening, one of the elven warriors rushes in. He lunges forward, his blade glowing with energy. But the wounded human parries the strike with surprising strength. The human's blade meets the elf's with a deafening clang. The warrior struggles against the unexpected resistance, pleading for the boy to listen to reason, but a terrifying roar suddenly shatters the standoff. Riardan screams for his squad to retreat immediately. A monstrous beast, the lord of the forest, smashes onto the scene. It sends the elven warriors scattering like leaves in the wind. One of the rangers leaps onto the creature's back, plunging his blade deep into its flesh. But to his horror, the weapon is hopelessly stuck. The enraged beast stumbles, its eyes locked on the downed elf. It lets out a final furious roar, lunging at its prey. Its claws tear into the warrior's leg as he tries to escape. The elf is caught, his arm trapped in the monster's jaws. But just as it's about to finish him, the human they were hunting decides to play hero. The elf struggles desperately against the crushing force. With a powerful overhead swing, the boy brings his sword down. The blade splits the creature's skull in a single brutal blow. He stands over the fallen beast as the elf begs for mercy. And just like that, the human levels up 4 times. Riardan identifies the human, whose level has doubled. A chilling realization dawns on the veteran ranger. He remembers the horror of what this leveling high means. The boy wrenches his sword free from the monster's skull and turns his cold gaze upon the elf he just saved. He reminds the warrior that they were the ones who attacked first. After gaining 4 levels from the beast, he now wonders how much experience an elf might be worth. And just like that, the scene shifts to a distant memory. We see the boy Rob living a normal life before all this. His friend Jason tries to console him about his parents. He insists that people only like him because Rob is so cool. And in this memory, Rob was just a kind, gentle soul. The 2 friends share a laugh in the school hallway. Rob recalls that he and Jason had been best friends since kindergarten. Jason was always trying to get him out of his shell, but Rob was perfectly happy in his pizza-scented comfort zone. It was just another ordinary day as they headed to class, until suddenly the world seemed to stop, and a terrifying, dark energy began to manifest right behind Jason. The hallway erupts into chaos as students flee in terror. A swirling vortex of darkness opens, and Rob screams for everyone to run. In the mad dash for safety, a fellow student trips and falls. Rob can only scream his friend's name as the darkness closes in. But Jason stops, turning back to help the fallen student. Rob freezes, realizing he's always been an observer, never the one to act. He tries to convince himself that the target is Jason, not him. The shadowy energy surges down the hall as Rob screams a warning. He admits to himself that he's never been the hero in these situations. A dark tendril lashes out, wrapping itself around Jason's ankle. Jason screams for Rob, unable to move as he's dragged back. But this time Rob forces himself to act, running to save his friend. A dark chain suddenly erupts from the vortex. It whips through the air, flying right past Jason. Rob grabs his friend's arm, trying to pull him free, but the chain finds its true target, wrapping around Rob's wrist. He looks down at his new, very unwanted accessory. So much for the rescue. The chain yanks him off his feet, dragging him toward the portal. Now it's Jason's turn to scream as he chases after Rob, but he's too late, watching helplessly as his friend is consumed by darkness. The last thing he saw was his friend, reflected in the eye of the abyss. Then Rob was falling, screaming into an endless darkness. He was consumed by the void, his terror absolute. Reality itself seemed to glitch and distort around him. A mysterious voice judges him worthy. He wakes with a gasp, wondering if this is the afterlife. A disembodied voice gives him some solid advice about avoiding the light. Stepping out of the cave, he confirms he's alive, but has no idea where he is. He wanders to the edge of a cliff, taking in this strange new world. A vast primordial landscape stretches out before him, complete with an active volcano. The gravity of his situation finally hits him. His only thought is of Jason, hoping his friend is okay. He stumbles through the grass, suddenly noticing his strange new clothes, and the very real, very large sword strapped to his back. He draws the blade, accidentally nicking his finger. A strange blue window appears, showing he's lost 1 HP. Suddenly, a full status screen materializes before him. At least it's inclusive. He scrolls through the data, recognizing terms from RPGs. For a moment, he tries to convince himself he's handling this well. And then the delayed, full-blown panic finally sets in. But his existential crisis is cut short by a low growl. A level 8. Frenzied wolf emerges from the trees. Rob fumbles with his sword, having no idea how to use it. He shakily warns the beast to stay back. With no other choice, he swings the massive blade wildly. The wolf, meanwhile, seems utterly unimpressed by his form. The beast finally lunges, claws extended for the kill, and Rob accidentally impales it right on his sword. But the creature is far from dead, its eyes burning with rage. He can only scream as it stares back with pure hatred. The wolf sinks its teeth into Rob's shoulder, refusing to die alone. With a surge of adrenaline, Rob forces the blade deeper. He drives the sword upward, ending the beast's life. The monster's body finally thuds to the ground. Rob flings the corpse from his blade in a panicked frenzy, but the damage is done, and he collapses in agony. His health points begin to drain away at an alarming rate. The system helpfully informs him he's suffering from severe bleeding. Thanks, Captain Obvious. He stumbles through the woods, hoping this is all just a bad dream, but the pain is real, and he knows he needs to stop the bleeding. He rips a piece of his shirt, trying to fashion a makeshift tourniquet. The pain is unlike anything he's ever felt before. His mind flashes back to high school biology, desperately trying to recall any first aid advice. He remembers a simple phrase from Jason's mom, but elevating the wound does absolutely nothing. Well, that was a bust. Frustration and fear turn into raw determination. He refuses to die like this. Vowing not to be thrown to the wolves and accept his fate, he grits his teeth, refusing to give in to the pain. He screams a challenge to the heavens, demanding a return ticket home. But as he rages, the wolf's corpse begins to steam and dissolve into nothing but particles of light. Suddenly, notifications flood his vision, announcing he's reached level 2. The information overload is agonizing, but it brings a new life-saving skill. With his health critically low, he dumps all his new stat points into vitality. The choice rewards him with 2 new passive skills, Tough Skin and Regeneration. Talk about a lucky break. His body finally gives out and he collapses onto the forest floor, and his mind drifts back to a simpler time, sitting with Jason at school. Jason teases him about his supposed preference for video games and chaos. Rob insists trouble just finds him, but Jason isn't buying it. He just smiles, saying they have to make their mistakes now. Back in the dream, Rob tells his friend he's determined to get home, but the vision of Jason turns grim, chuckling that it won't matter. He tells Rob that he's already dead. Rob stares in disbelief as the vision confirms his fate. The Spectre then questions Rob's heroic act, asking if he really saved him. He suggests he could have been dragged into that hellscape right alongside him. Rob tries to deny it, clinging to the hope that his sacrifice meant something. Rob screams in denial, insisting the voice is just in his head. But the specter of Jason continues its torment, calling him a sad, abandoned puppy. It suggests their friendship was just a habit that Jason outgrew. Ouch, dream. Jason is ruthless. Rob stares in horror as the vision begins to distort, asking what it really is. A wide, sinister grin is the only answer he receives. The shadowy figure asks if he truly doesn't recognize it. Dark tendrils then erupt from the creature, piercing through Rob's chest. His eye reflects the terrifying energy consuming him from within. He wakes with a sudden gasp, back on the forest floor. He realizes the nightmare wasn't real, but his current predicament certainly is. He looks down at his own body, now surprisingly toned. Apparently this world comes with an instant gym membership, but his relief is short-lived as he stares at the remains of the wolf. The horrifying realization dawns on him. He's a killer. The thought is so repulsive it makes him physically ill. He empties the contents of his stomach onto the forest floor. He looks to the sky, asking if things could get any worse. And right on cue, the heavens open up with a downpour. Taking shelter, he notices his regeneration skill is active, albeit slowly. He then recalls the other benefits he gained from leveling up. He scrolls through his skills, finding the one he activated. The skill is called Do Not Go Gently, a reference he finds darkly amusing. He wonders if near-death experiences are the only way to gain new skills, but he'll take any advantage he can get to survive this hellscape. He considers the grim possibility of what happens when his health hits 0, imagining a classic game over screen from an old video game. And he has a sneaking suspicion there's no restart button here. Sitting alone in the downpour, his despair hardens into resolve. He remembers the brutal fight, the feeling of taking a life to save his own. For now, he pushes the trauma aside, focusing only on survival. Rob shivers in the cold, regretting his lack of survival skills. He desperately checks his pockets for anything useful. He finds a small, burnt piece of paper. Unfolding it, his expression hardens with frustration. The note offers a simple, mocking message. Good luck. Well, that's just incredibly unhelpful. The scene then shifts to a mysterious well in a forest clearing. Deep inside, a female elf warrior named Kira fights for her life. Her companion, a ranger named Menta, warns her they're outnumbered. Kira knows he's right. They can't win this fight alone. She complains that this was supposed to be an easy dungeon. Menta questions her confidence, but Kira insists she was built for this. He argues they aren't high level enough for this kind of fight. As a monster dissolves, he wishes they could level up faster. Kira ominously recalls a race that could do just that. If only she knew. Meanwhile, Rob is still stewing over his incredibly unhelpful welcome note. He crumples the paper in a fit of rage, but his anger quickly turns back into grim determination to get home. Just then, the system rewards him for his near-death experience. He forces a grin, taking any small victory he can get. But his body soon reminds him of a more pressing issue: hunger. With his resolve renewed, he sets out with a clear mission: find food and water. His stats are slowly recovering, giving him just enough strength to move. He tries to hype himself up, ready to take on this new world. But the sight of 2 suns in the sky is a constant, unsettling reminder that he is very, very far from home. Still, he steels himself for what must be done. Even if it means hunting a very unimpressed-looking frog, the deed earns him a single experience point and a face full of guts. But hey, XP is XP, and he eagerly chases down his next victim. He declares his desperate need for more experience points, but his lunge ends with a face full of water as the frog easily escapes. And then a glorious realization dawns on him. He's found fresh water, and for a moment, all is right with the world. With his thirst quenched, he resumes his frantic search for a way home. He desperately looks for the portal, even checking under rocks. But instead of an exit, he finds a much less friendly-looking amphibian. Later, he studies his status screen, wondering about his magic potential. He strikes a familiar pose, attempting to cast a powerful spell. The result is absolutely nothing. Well, it was worth a shot. His next target is a rather large, stoic-looking frog. He raises his sword for the kill, but his prey seems utterly unimpressed. Frustrated, Rob turns his attention to foraging, trying to knock down a piece of fruit. He manages to get one, but it's hardly a feast. His stomach still growls. Hunting frogs isn't filling him up or his XP bar. He realizes he needs to think bigger if he wants to level up. Just then, a new sound catches his attention. But his next target, a small bird, easily flies away from his clumsy attack. He He stands over the remains of his previous hunt, feeling guilty for a single experience point. But all that practice did pay off, unlocking a new passive skill: swordsmanship. Rob reflects on how a few practice swings are all it takes to gain a skill. But his newfound talent isn't filling his stomach or his experience bar. He knows he needs to hunt something bigger than frogs to level up. Just then, a strange squeak echoes through the woods. Peeking from behind a tree, he spots what he thinks is his next meal. He hurls his sword, hoping one little squirrel will be enough. It turns out to be a level 3 frenzied squirrel, and its status is literally about to go nuts. The rabid creature launches itself directly at Rob's face. He reacts on pure instinct, swatting it out of the air, and the monster meets a rather messy end against a nearby tree. He stares at his hand, horrified by the act, all for a measly 10 experience points. But it's just enough to push him over the edge, reaching level 3. He lets out a triumphant, slightly unhinged roar. He taunts the splattered remains of his foe. Yeah, he's handling this just fine. His efforts also reward him with new passive skills for hunting and foraging. With a renewed sense of confidence, he continues his trek through the woods. But it seems the forest squirrel population has a score to settle. A level 4 infected rodent lands squarely on his face. He screams, desperately trying to pry the creature off. With a furious heave, he finally throws the rabid animal away. He runs for his life, pursued by the angriest squirrel in existence. His frantic escape comes to a screeching halt at a cliff's edge. He laments the shocking lack of guardrails in Fantasyland, but the rabid rodent gives him one last fateful shove, and Rob is sent screaming over the edge. In a desperate last-ditch effort, he grabs onto a root. He uses the momentum to finally kick the creature off his back. Dangling precariously, he struggles to find a hold, the thought of giving up creeping in. He knows that back home, days will turn into weeks, then months. And he wonders if he will ever see his family and friends again. He wonders if he'll even be the same person if he makes it back. He could just let go, give in to despair. Or he could choose to be brave. He vows to get home no matter what it takes. And just like that, the system rewards his effort with a new skill. He collapses at the top, earning another skill for his troubles. The system even gives him a point in dexterity, while also roasting him for his poor decisions. He gasps for air, convinced this world is actively trying to kill him. But even in this hellscape, he can't deny the view is breathtaking. He can only wish his best friend was there to see it with him. His resolve earns him a new skill, one born from soul-crushing sadness. But he rejects it, not wanting to lose the feelings that connect him to home. He can't bear the thought of numbing the pain of being away from them. He knows they're waiting for him, and he misses them dearly. The scene shifts to the day of the encounter, with Orntol and Malika by a waterfall. Malika teases him about his poor fishing technique. But Orntol is in no hurry, content to just enjoy the beautiful day. He soaks in the peace of the forest, a place he truly loves. Meanwhile, elsewhere in this world, Rob is having a significantly worse day. He shoves the beast back and cuts it down with a furious swing. He warns the beast that it's about to feel his pent-up aggression. It's another level 8 frenzied wolf, somehow still moving despite its injuries. Rob admits that at this point, nothing in this world can surprise him anymore. The infected creature lunges forward with a furious roar. He meets the charge head-on, impaling the beast on his blade. But the wolf still manages to slash his face as it goes down. He flings the monster aside, hoping the fight is finally over. But the creature just gets back up, sword still sticking out of its chest. Talk about persistent. It leaps at him again, ready for another round. Fed up, Rob decides to try a more hands-on approach. He unleashes a flurry of bare-knuckle blows on the beast. A final, brutal punch sends the wolf crashing to the ground. He retrieves his sword, preparing to end the fight for good. And with one last strike, the battle is finally over. His eyes glow, anticipating the reward for his victory. The system rewards him with a level up and a new passive skill: brawling. A strange, satisfied grin spreads across his face. He admits to himself that the brutal fight was actually fun. He pulls up his status screen to check his new stats. He decides to invest his points into vitality, hoping to unlock another skill. But the reward is a bit underwhelming. He decides to invest his last points into his mind stat, unlocking a new active skill, quick thinking. Now this is a reward he can get behind. Feeling a surge of confidence, he challenges the forest itself, declaring his intent to finally find a decent meal. But his hunt is cut short by an unexpected sight. He can't believe his eyes. He's finally found other people. His identify skill reveals 2 elves, both completely terrified. But his friendly greeting is met with a scream as they flee in terror. He desperately calls for them to come back. He even tries a friendly, if slightly crazed, farewell. But he's left alone once again, utterly dejected. He shouts into the empty woods, hoping for any sign of life. A sudden noise from the trees gives him a flicker of hope, but it's nothing, and he slumps down, just wanting someone to talk to. He screams at the sky, asking the system for a volume boost. With no one to answer, he decides to retreat to his cave. But as hunger sets in, he fails to notice two figures watching from the shadows. He drags his sword, wondering why everything he kills just melts away, and from the shadows, an arrow of light is unleashed. But just as it's about to hit, Rob trips over a stray rock. He dodges the fatal shot through sheer, unadulterated clumsiness. The arrow opens a portal and he can only stare in stunned silence. A volley of magical arrows rains down from the sky. He runs for his life, desperately wondering who's trying to kill him now. But one of the arrows still finds its mark in his leg. He cries out in pain, the reality of the attack setting in. Just then, an elven warrior leaps from the trees, blade glowing. Rob reacts on instinct, parrying the strike with his own sword. In the heat of the moment, Rob uses his Identify skill. He learns his attacker is a level 48 elf ranger. He begs the elf to listen, to understand the situation. Suddenly, a terrifying sound echoes through the woods. He sees a monstrous shape emerge from the trees. The system identifies it as the level 42 Lord of the Forest. The impact sends Rob flying backward into the water. He's pinned under a fallen log, struggling to think. He quickly weighs his terrible options. But he also sees a chance for a huge experience gain. Because priorities. He knows this is his chance to level up and he needs it. With his sword in hand, he steps forward, ready to claim his prize. He leaps into the air, bringing the massive blade down with all his might. The sword splits the creature's skull in a single brutal blow. And just like that, the system rewards him with 4 levels in an instant. He stands over the fallen beast as the elf begs for mercy. A chilling grin spreads across Rob's face as the leveling high kicks in. He admits this feeling is the only good thing about this hellish world. With his health nearly depleted, he dumps all 20 of his new stat points into vitality. The gamble pays off, unlocking a powerful new healing skill called Life Surge. With his health rapidly regenerating, Rob feels the power coursing through him. He turns his attention back to the terrified elf, reminding him who attacked first. He reflects on the senseless violence he's faced since arriving in this world. The leveling high whispers a dangerous question into his mind, and for a terrifying moment it seems he's about to give in to that impulse. But the blade stops just inches from the elf's throat. The bloodlust fades, and Rob is horrified by what he almost became. He pulls himself back from the brink, refusing to lose his humanity. He vows that he won't let this brutal world turn him into a monster, and with his identity reaffirmed, he turns his back on the fight and walks away. His status screen updates, now listing leveling high and loneliness. As the high fades, Rob walks away from the battlefield. He looks at his hands, horrified by what he almost did. He questions his own sanity, his own morality. He wanders through the woods, lost in his own dark thoughts. His aimless trek leads him to a strange, circular structure. It's a massive ancient well, basically a haunted hole in the ground. He knows he should leave, but a desperate hope takes root. He reasons that the portal that brought him here was dark, just like this. With a nervous gulp, he prepares to descend into the abyss. The memory of that dark chain still haunts him, a phantom weight still clinging to his wrist. But he refuses to let fear control him any longer. As he descends, he thinks of home to keep his courage up. But of course, the ancient ladder decides to snap. He plummets into the darkness below, screaming all the way down. He lands with a thud, realizing his new stats make him surprisingly durable. Picking himself up, he's just glad nothing has tried to eat him yet. But then he hears a faint sound like someone in danger. Without a second thought, he runs toward the cry for help. He follows the sound, spotting a light up ahead. It leads him to a massive glowing red door. He cautiously peeks around a pillar to see what lies beyond. And what he finds is a scene of utter carnage. A fallen elf lies on the cold stone floor. The sight hits him with a chilling realization. He remembers almost doing the very same thing to the elf he saved. Overcome with guilt, he collapses to his knees. He feels a sudden need to offer some kind of final respect, even if it means asking a corpse for its funeral preferences. The elf's lifeless eyes stare up at the ceiling. Rob sits beside him, remarking that he's a better conversationalist than the last elves he met. He realizes the body has been here for a while, which means the scream he heard was a warning, as a blade is pressed against his neck. A female elf warrior threatens to end him if he moves. Rob's first question naturally is whether she speaks English. Priorities, people. She sees the body of her fallen comrade, Menta. Her grief quickly turns to rage as she glares at the human. Believing him responsible, she brings her massive sword down in a furious arc. Rob barely blocks the blow, wondering why everyone in this world is so ridiculously strong. The elf grabs him by the throat, her grip like iron. She calls him a monster, demanding to know why he attacked her friend. She threatens to end him if he doesn't give her an answer. Rob struggles to speak, pointing out that she's already trying. With a furious shove, she throws him to the stone floor. Tears of rage stream down her face as she demands the truth. But Rob can only manage a single desperate gesture. He activates his identify skill, showing her his own status. She sees his stats and freezes, her rage faltering. He tries to explain, but she silences him, her anger now replaced with confusion. She tells him to leave, her anger replaced by a hollow sorrow. As Rob slowly rises, the warrior collapses beside her fallen comrade. She whispers his name, her voice filled with disbelief. He realizes the scream he heard wasn't a warning, but her cry for him. She's overcome with guilt, blaming herself for looking away for a moment. Tears stream down her face as she mourns the only one who ever looked out for her. She promises to bring him home, to give his soul a final peace. She gently prepares to lift him, ready to carry her burden alone. But Rob steps forward, asking if he can help. Well, this is awkward. She just stares at him, the human she just tried to kill. She glares at him through her tears, trying to push him away. Her eyes are filled with a mixture of rage and profound sorrow. But her anger is directed inward, blaming herself for her friend's fate. Rob quietly tells her that he understands that feeling all too well. He admits that he might be a monster, but still offers to help her. The warrior looks up, stunned by the unexpected kindness. After a moment of hesitation, she quietly accepts his offer. Rob quickly clarifies that he gets it. This isn't a friendship thing. Totally. He then extends a hand, formally introducing himself as Rob. She looks at his hand, then meets his gaze and tells him her name is Kira. The system rewards his kindness with a new skill, diplomacy. About time. And so begins the world's most awkward team-up. As they carry Menta's body, Kira notes the dungeon feels larger than before. She explains that these places are known to shift and change over time. But she admits it's her first time in one, just like him. Dungeons are rare near her home, a fact she's usually grateful for. Rob questions why she would risk coming here just to explore. She confesses she wanted to prove her worth to her village. Rob looks at her with empathy, saying he knows that feeling well. Kira is taken aback, questioning his attempt to understand her. He explains his social life has been a disaster, culminating in a friendship with a stick. Kira dryly reminds him that she also tried to kill him just a few minutes ago. Rob awkwardly suggests they've moved past that little misunderstanding. She clarifies that his potential murder is just on hold for now. As they cross a long bridge, he begins to comment on the dungeon's decor, only to be cut off by a strange, disgusting puddle on the floor. Kira looks at him with renewed suspicion, questioning if he's even human. She admits the stories her village tells about his kind are less than complimentary. She wonders how anyone could forgive humans, but Rob is completely lost. Kira is shocked, realizing he has no idea what his people have done. Rob explains that he's the only human he's seen since arriving. Kira asks if he truly knows nothing of the cataclysm in Ixaton. She gestures to their surroundings, telling him this entire land is Ixaton. Rob, still confused, asks if she means the dungeon itself. She clarifies that it's the name of the whole region, not just the hole they're in. He finally understands before asking what a rafa berry is. Kira explains it's a mildly poisonous fruit. Rob cheerfully admits he's eaten one, confirming he's a very strange person. The elf warrior looks at him with genuine curiosity, asking where he's from. He looks to the cavern ceiling, explaining he's from another planet called Earth. Kira stares at him, completely floored by his answer. He asks if getting dragged through a portal by chains isn't the standard commute. She realizes he's a complete outsider to their world, Elatra. The implications of his story begin to weigh heavily on her. She feels a slight sense of relief, knowing he's not one of those humans. Rob's expression hardens with resolve. But Kira understands his true motive, to level up. He stops, confused by the ominous tone in her voice. She turns, her patience clearly running thin, and demands to see his stats. Rob quickly complies, pulling up his glowing status window. Rob presents his stats, admitting he's not much of a threat. Kira lets out a sigh of relief, noting his leveling high is still low. He's surprised to see the status, realizing there's a name for that addictive rush. He nervously asks what happens when that feeling gets stronger. Kira's expression darkens, warning him she might reconsider her mercy. Our boy gets the message loud and clear. As a horde of monsters appears, she questions his stat allocation choices. He frantically explains his choices, driven by the fear of dying. He lists all the things that have tried to kill him so far. But Kira cuts him off, sensing a new, more immediate threat. A massive spider descends from the ceiling, and Rob has a very bad feeling. Before he can panic, Kira smashes the creature with a single punch. But that was just the scout, as a whole swarm of hungry spiders emerges. Rob grimly notes he can add spiders to his ever-growing list of threats. His soul practically leaves his body as he realizes there's nowhere to run. One of the creatures screeches, lunging straight for his face. Kira leaps into action, her blade carving a path through the horde. But Rob is frozen solid, admitting he has a crippling fear of spiders, a pop culture reference that is completely lost on his new elven companion. Kira tells him to get over it because she can't fight this army alone. Rob stands frozen in terror, sword held like a security blanket. As a literal nightmare of spiders descends from the ceiling, Kira's blade flashes past his face, saving him at the last second. She grabs him, activating a skill called Circle of Death. She carves a path through the horde, but the numbers are overwhelming. With deadly grace, she begins to count down her remaining foes. She even hurls her massive sword like a deadly boomerang. It finds its mark, pinning one of the creatures in midair. The blade lands perfectly as she continues her grim countdown. And with a final, brutal stomp, she reaches 0. She stands victorious amidst the carnage, her skill Circle of Death still active. With a furious cry for her fallen friend, she becomes a whirlwind of steel. The slaughter earns her a level up and a grimly satisfied smile. But as the last monster falls, she realizes her human companion is missing. A distant scream and a rumbling sound draw her attention, and she finds Rob, who has apparently decided to conquer his phobia through sheer, unadulterated rage. Kira watches with grim understanding. The boy has completely snapped. He slices through another creature, his movements wild and uncontrolled. She admits she had the situation handled, but offers a reluctant thanks. But Rob is far beyond hearing her, lost in a berserker frenzy. Kira watches in awe, realizing the legends about humans were no exaggeration. But Rob is completely overwhelmed, screaming as the endless swarm covers him. As one bites into his arm, his poison-resistant skill levels up. He's lost in a sea of arachnids while Kira prepares to intervene. Every bite only makes him stronger, leveling his resistance yet again. He's trapped in his own personal nightmare, convinced this is hell itself. He grits his teeth, realizing there's only one way out of this mess. His brilliant plan: just roll around and squish them all, unlocking the creepy crawler crusher skill. He sits up, dazed and covered in goo amidst the carnage. But it seems he missed one, as a lone survivor makes a final squeak. With a final, satisfying squish, he ends the last one. His phobia literally evolves into a new passive skill: arachnophobia. The ordeal pushes him to level 9, and the system even rewards his flailing. He turns to Kira, still reeling from the fight. Covered in gore, he asks if they're winning yet. But his victory is cut short by a horrifying sight. The remaining spiders are swarming over Menta's body. Rob roars in fury, demanding they show respect for the dead. He carves a path through the horde, calling for Kira's help. The slaughter earns him level 10, even as the creatures fight back. The last of the creatures is crushed underfoot, ending the arachnid nightmare with a final, satisfying stomp. Kira can only stare, completely at a loss for words. Rob activates his life surge skill, the green energy mending his wounds. The power courses through him, erasing the damage from the fight. In moments, he's back to full strength, feeling better than ever. But Kira is still wary, asking if his battle frenzy has passed. Rob just smiles, considering her rather pointed question. He admits that the bloodlust is gone, but now he's just lusting after a warm meal. Priorities, you know? With the danger finally gone, Kira carefully prepares her fallen friend for the journey, telling Rob it's time to leave this cursed place. Sometime later, they finally make camp in the woods. And for the first time in a long time, Rob enjoys a proper meal. Kira studies his stats, surprised his leveling high is still so low. But Rob is blissfully unaware, his priorities clearly in order. She offers the meal as a token of gratitude for his help. He insists he should be thanking her for the rescue from his personal hell. Kira then explains the source of the frenzied animals he's encountered. Rob finally understands why everyone has been so eager to kill him. Kira then casually mentions that her entire village also wants him dead. But Rob just smiles, recalling his encounter with the level 48 ranger. Kira decides that if she's bringing him in, he can't look like a crazed wanderer. As they walk, she shares a story of how she and Menta met as young troublemakers. She admits that he was the only good part of her childhood, the only one who looked out for her. She explains that while her village has its problems, it's still the only home she's ever known. Rob comments on how quiet it is, but Kira's expression grows tense. She looks around in alarm, realizing there are no lights, no signs of life at all. She stands atop the village wall, sensing something is deeply wrong. Back at their camp, Rob's status reflects his newfound hope. But in the village, the silence is absolutely deafening. She sees terrified faces peering from windows, fearing the worst. She races through the deserted streets, desperate for answers. Banging on a door, she calls out for Riardan. The door opens to reveal the very ranger who hunted Rob. Small world. She sees his wounded leg, but he brushes off her concern. He then asks the one question she was dreading to hear. With a heavy heart, she delivers the devastating news. She explains they went to scout a new dungeon but got separated. Riardan offers a blessing for her fallen friend, Menta. As they walk, he explains the village is on lockdown after his squad was attacked. But Kira has a confession to make. She had help from a human. The admission hangs heavy in the silent street. Riardan recalls the dangerous human he was tracking just hours before. Kira insists that without his help, she couldn't have brought Menta home. Riardan agrees to talk, but makes a solemn vow. She adds one last crucial detail. The human is not from their world. Meanwhile, said human is having a moment of profound eloquence. Kira returns with the very ranger who tried to kill Rob. She begins to make the formal introductions. But Rob and Riardan confirm they're already acquainted. Well, this is awkward. Rob realizes the stoic elf understood every word he said back in the forest. He quickly learns that getting a straight answer out of this guy is a challenge. He tries to smooth things over, but Riardan is having none of it. Rob finally breaks, pleading for a little understanding. He explains how lost and scared he's been since arriving in this world. He insists that despite the history between their kinds, he is not a threat. All he asks is for a little help or directions to get out of their hair. Riardan asks the obvious question, and Rob confirms he's an outsider. The ranger then drops a bombshell. There are no human settlements. As far as they know, Rob is the last of his kind. The news hits him like a ton of bricks. Riardan leads them through a massive graveyard under the stars. His answer is a single chilling word: war. He recalls a time when the cost of victory was far too high. A human, consumed by the leveling high, cut down his family, his friends, until everyone he knew was gone. Rob is stunned by the sheer number of graves, but Riardan clarifies that these are the graves of 1,000 elves, all killed by humans. He walks past, explaining that there was no end to their violence. A grand alliance of races fought back in a conflict they eventually called the Scouring. It was a war that led to the extinction of an entire people and the loss of half of their own. All that remained was a world left in tatters. Riardan turns to Rob, expecting him to be horrified by the revelation. But Rob admits that this story sounds disturbingly familiar. Apparently, humanity has a type. He knows that in war, people don't just lose each other. They lose themselves in the process. Riardan sits, recalling a decade of service that left him broken and empty. Riardan reveals his prosthetic hand, blaming Rob's kind for his injury. Kira steps in, telling Riardan that's enough for one night. Rob is stunned, wondering how much worse this story can get, but Riardan insists on telling him every last detail of the atrocities. Kira puts her foot down, insisting they all need to rest. The ranger agrees, but warns Rob that tomorrow will be a big day. He'll be presented to the elders for judgment, and they won't be kind. Or he has another option: leave now and never return. Riardan leaves him with the choice, a final act of mercy. Rob, meanwhile, takes a moment to appreciate the local statuary. Priorities. The night offers Rob no rest, his dreams filled with terror. He jolts awake with a desperate scream. He takes in his surroundings, realizing elves apparently live in medieval McMansions. He wanders the quiet halls, lost in his own sorrow. He's not the only one awake, finding Kira lost in her own despair. She tries to hide her tears, claiming she couldn't sleep. He admits he's in the same boat, sharing a moment of quiet understanding. She offers to make some tea, breaking the heavy silence. She apologizes for her humble home, but Rob's enthusiasm makes her question his previous living standards. Rob explains that back home, he was just a college student. As she pours him some tea, she apologizes for prying into his past. She can't imagine what this whole ordeal has been like for him. Rob admits he hasn't really processed any of it yet, preferring to let the trauma simmer until he has a complete breakdown. Kira dryly notes how healthy that sounds. The mood turns serious as Rob finally understands her initial hostility. Kira admits that even though she wasn't on the front lines, she still lost everyone, with Menta being the last person she had left. She admits that meeting him has changed her perspective. He wasn't part of the war, but she knows the others won't be so forgiving. She had hoped his presence would change their minds, but it's a steep climb. Rob jokes that he's already scaled one cliff, so he's ready for another. Kira's inner gamer suddenly emerges, demanding to know his stat gains. He explains he fell down the cliff, which explains his obsession with vitality. The lighthearted moment passes, and she asks if he's made his choice. With a look of pure resolve, Rob confirms that he has. The next morning, a hooded Rob follows Kira into the village. He keeps his head down, an outsider walking among his sworn enemies. His attempt at being inconspicuous even earns him a new stealth skill. He takes a deep breath and steps into the grand hall. The Elven Council immediately demands he show his face. For a second, he imagines a much more dramatic entrance. He uses his identify skill, confirming they're all suitably horrified. Rob lowers his hood, asking for a chance to introduce himself. But the council erupts in outrage at the sight of a human. One of the elders, however, seems to be lost in thought. The others demand Riardan attack, injured leg or not. But Riardan explains that Rob has come willingly for their judgment. An elder delivers their verdict: remove the human from their presence. But Rob cuts him off, insisting his name is Rob, not the human. Kira can't help but smile at his unexpected audacity. Riardan then speaks up, confirming Rob is an outsider from another world. The elders listen, their initial hostility giving way to curiosity. The lead elder strokes his beard, pondering this new information. He begins a pop quiz to verify Rob's otherworldly origins. His answers are so alien that the council is left completely stunned. The elder seems convinced, thanking Rob for his honesty. They agree his story holds weight, but a new question hangs in the air. Rob confirms that he's aware of the atrocities his kind committed. The elder then asks why they should show him any mercy. Rob admits any apology he could offer would be a hollow gesture. He holds up 2 fingers ready to state his case. First, he wasn't there, and to pretend he understands their pain would be an insult. And second, he refuses to share the blame for a war he never fought. The council takes this to mean he wants nothing to do with them. The elder accuses him of simply seeking shelter from the wilderness. Rob takes a moment to consider this. He's got to admit, the man has a point. But he explains that this village is the closest thing to home he's seen. He tells them he senses good people here and just wants to be friends. Kira offers a silent nod of support. All he asks for is a single chance to prove himself. The council stares down at him, the weight of their judgment palpable. 2 of the elders give a slow, deliberate nod. Even Riardan seems to agree, and for a moment, Rob dares to hope. One of the younger members even begins to applaud his speech. A small, hopeful smile spreads across his face, but her smile turns sinister as she votes for his execution. Well, that was a short-lived victory. The sudden reversal leaves both him and Kira utterly baffled. Rob tells himself to stay calm, knowing they expect a monster. He turns to the elder, demanding to know why she voted against him. She explains that his very existence is a painful reminder of all she's lost. Rob sees the same sentiment reflected on the faces of the other elders. He looks down, accepting that his journey home has come to an end. But just then, another elder casts a surprising vote for him to stay. Our boy immediately decides this elf is his new best friend. The first elder slams her fist, demanding to know his reasoning. He calmly explains that Rob's words only solidified his own opinion. He believes the boy has much to teach them and means them no harm. The female elder accuses her colleague of treason, but the lead elder silences the argument, turning to Rob with a new line of questioning. He's told to read his status effects aloud, a request Rob finds deeply suspicious. He looks to Kira, who gives a subtle nod of encouragement. So he pulls up his status screen, listing off the usual suspects: melancholia, hopeful, and the one that makes the whole room go silent: leveling high. He's confused by their sudden change in demeanor. Did he miss the memo on that one? The elder realizes Rob has no idea what that status truly means, and it all clicks into place for Rob. This is why Kira was always so concerned. The lead elder turns to his colleague, asking him to educate the boy. He explains that in this world, all beings seek to increase their level, while others enjoy leveling. For humans, it's a desperate need. To them, it's an obsession. And Rob realizes the truth in his words. The elder continues, saying the high of leveling trumps all other desires. Rob looks up in horror, realizing it sounds like an addiction, and the fact that it's on his status screen means the process has begun. No takebacks. The weight of this revelation crashes down on him. He remembers the rush, the feeling of power coursing through him. He remembers how good it felt and how much he wanted more. He remembers the intoxicating rush of power, a feeling better than anything he had ever known. The elder points out his dangerously rapid growth. She knows he's had to kill to get this far, and Rob is forced to admit the truth to himself. He almost killed an elf just for the experience points. He questions what this brutal world is turning him into. He desperately asks how to get rid of this curse. But the answer is simple: he can't. Talk about a lifetime subscription. The elder explains that the most afflicted were sent on suicide missions. Rob clutches his head, insisting he's different. But the elder explains that's what they all believed, before the addiction turned them into monsters. He then makes a desperate, shocking proposal. He gives them permission to end his life if he ever loses control. He even volunteers Riardan to be his personal executioner. Talk about a vote of confidence. The one elder who supported him questions this grim bargain. Rob's resolve is clear. He refuses to become a monster. Riardan then steps forward, offering his own testimony. He explains that Rob somehow suppressed the high, a feat previously thought impossible. The elder demands to know if Riardan is siding with the human, but Riardan simply states he's reporting what he saw. Rob makes a mental note to thank the guy who tried to kill him. The lead elder decides it's time to settle this with a vote. The votes are cast, resulting in a perfect tie. Everything now rests on a single final vote. The lead elder begins his verdict, calling Rob a source of unrest, but his judgment is cut short by a deafening crash. Kira slams her sword down, refusing to stay silent any longer. She argues that Rob has proven he means them no harm. The elder dismisses Kira's opinion, saying she never saw the war. But Kira retorts that she was taught to judge people by their actions. She sarcastically asks what they'll do, cut her already terrible pay, a sentiment that Rob quietly agrees with from the sidelines. When asked what he said, Rob speaks up for his new friend. He explains that it bothers him because it clearly bothers her, and he announces that, shocker, he's capable of basic empathy. He even suggests a pay raise, much to Kira's utter embarrassment. But the lead elder just smiles, revealing this was all a test. And with that, he officially welcomes Rob to the village. The elder's smile is genuine, and Kira can't hide her relief. She even gives Rob a congratulatory, if slightly condescending, pat on the head. But the celebration is short-lived, as the village gathers for a somber occasion. They've come to pay their final respects to Menta. Riardan speaks of his fallen comrade's strength and spirit, a sentiment that Kira feels more deeply than anyone. Rob stands beside her, lost in his own painful memories. He's still shocked they even allowed him to be here, but he feels powerless with no words of comfort to offer. The ranger then opens the floor for anyone else to speak. Kira remarks that they find themselves in this place far too often. Rob recognizes the elder who vouched for him, who insists this wasn't Kira's fault. The elder notes Rob's quick defense before asking a curious question. He asks if Rob knows why their village has no name. He explains that the cataclysm left everyone here an orphan from different towns. This village is now home to almost every elf left in the entire region. As Riardan offers a handkerchief, the elder explains they could never agree on a name. But Kira pushes the gesture away, lost in her own sorrow. She places flowers on her friend's casket, as the elder recalls their dilemma. Everyone wanted to honor what was lost, but everyone had lost something different. Kira speaks of their nameless village, a place of found families, and how she and Menta helped each other become whole. But now that he's gone, she collapses in despair. Rob moves to comfort her, but the elder holds him back. Her cries echo through the square, a question with no answer. He can only watch, a silent witness to her pain. The procession makes its way through the vast graveyard. Rob helps carry the burden as Kira insists she's fine. She's clearly not. The thought makes him think of Jason, and a chilling possibility. But a strange marking on Menta's neck catches his eye. He stares in horror, a chilling realization dawning on him, because the body in the casket is suddenly staring right back at him. The pallbearers drop the casket in shock. Kira rushes forward, screaming her friend's name, but Rob holds her back, insisting that's not him anymore. A monstrous hand claws its way out of the coffin. Riardan identifies the creature as a corpse eater. Well, so much for a peaceful funeral. Just as a massive flock of infected crows descends from the sky, Rob tells Riardan to protect the village while they handle the threat here. He makes the ranger promise to get Kira home safely. The system confirms the worst. Menta is now a level 18 corpse eater. The creature lunges forward, a mindless beast driven by instinct. But Rob moves to intercept, telling Kira her friend is gone. He lands a deep cut, warning her to avoid the parasites. The thing that was once her friend lets out a horrifying scream. It swats him aside with surprising strength, sending our boy crashing hard against the stone. Kira desperately tries to reach what's left of her friend. She begs him to remember her, tears streaming down her face. But the only response is a pained, inhuman gurgle. The parasites writhe, twisting Menta's body into a grotesque new form. Kira can only plead with the monster that was once her friend. But Rob leaps in from behind, trying to restrain the creature. He's immediately slammed to the ground for his troubles. The monster lifts him by the collar, its grip like iron. It begins to choke the life out of him, clearly not a fan of being interrupted. It opens its mouth, trying to force a dark parasite down his throat. The grotesque tendril inches closer to his face. But Kira rushes in, driving her massive blade through its side. With tears in her eyes, she apologizes for what must be done. She brings her blade down in a final, merciful strike. The creature that was once her friend finally falls. And the system delivers the most brutal enemy-defeated message of all time. Rob can only offer a quiet presence as Kira mourns her friend for a second time. Later, she thanks him for his help, and he tells her that's what friends are for. She looks at him, a silent acknowledgement of their new, strange bond. Back in the village, the elder realizes the infected crows were targeting the town's power source. He's relieved to hear that Kira and the human have returned safely, but he knows the corpse eater's attack means the crystal's protective magic is failing. With their forces depleted, Riardan decides it's time to train the next generation of rangers. Riardan notes that while Kira is a warrior, she's a powerful one. The elder then asks what their plan is for the human. Riardan suggests that since Rob is part of the village now, they should train him. He believes Rob is already strong and has the potential to be even stronger. And it seems Rob's hopeful status has leveled up from the good news. He's officially welcomed to the village, a moment he's been waiting for. He's just happy no one is throwing chairs at him yet. But Kira suddenly tells him to move as the villagers approach with weapons. She warns him that things are about to get violent and pulls him away. The elder calls for them to hurry inside, away from the angry mob. Kira shoves Rob inside, away from the angry mob. The door slams shut just as the villagers arrive. Kira explains the crowd is dispersing, but only for now. The elder confirms the secret is out, the whole village knows. With the immediate danger gone, Kira collapses from exhaustion. Rob is clearly not buying it, as she admits the chaos was a grimly convenient distraction. He offers to talk about what happened with Menta, but she shuts him down immediately, not ready to face it. A white-haired warrior steps in, agreeing with Rob's concern. Kira just looks away, brushing off his apology. The white-haired warrior offers to keep Kira company, leaving Rob alone with the one elder who vouched for him, who proceeds to stare at him like a fascinating new bug. The elder finally breaks the silence, asking about his home world. Rob hesitantly confirms he's from a planet called Earth. The elder processes this, coining the term Earthian. Truly groundbreaking stuff. He's clearly excited, with a million questions for the boy, but Rob interrupts, having a few questions of his own. The elder introduces himself as Duran and invites him to the library. He thanks Rob for defending the village, but Rob humbly gives Kira the credit. Duran offers to be a resource, a guide to this strange new world. But Rob admits that despite the welcome, his primary goal hasn't changed. He still wants to find a way back to his own world. But Duran admits that's one question he simply can't answer. Rob's thoughts immediately turn to Jason, fearing for his friend's safety. The elder offers some comforting words, which Rob immediately assumes are lies. Still, he clings to the hope that his friend is safe. Duran promises to consult the ancient scrolls for any possible answers. Rob offers a grateful smile, a small flicker of hope renewed. He then brings up a more immediate problem, his unspent stat points, lamenting how people on Earth just have to guess their self-worth. Duran understands his concerns using the term min-maxing. The elder then makes a rather forward request to see his stats. Rob is confused, noting that sharing stats seems to be a local custom. Just then, Kira arrives with the white-haired warrior from before. The atmosphere in the room grows a little awkward. Kira explains that Riardan's signature glare was enough to disperse the mob. The warrior then questions Kira's own stat choices. He points out her reliance on strength, but she defends her build. He then turns his attention to Rob, noticing a similar imbalance. Rob frantically explains he panic-loaded everything into whatever kept him alive. Duran advises against investing in magic, crushing Rob's dreams of becoming a spellcaster. The white-haired warrior asks about magic on Earth, and Rob's explanation of stage magic is hilariously misinterpreted. Duran suggests he invest his points into perception instead. It will heighten his senses and help him in his training under Riardan, a training session that apparently starts tomorrow. Rob asks if this makes him a ranger, an idea Kira finds deeply offensive, but Riardan seems completely unbothered by the insult. Duran explains that changing his class is a serious, life-altering decision. Rob continues the stat discussion, asking about dexterity. He then offers his own, unique theory on how strength affects speed, an idea that is immediately and unanimously shot down. Duran notices something else, pointing out Rob's unusually high mind stat. He theorizes Rob's intelligence from Earth carried over into his stats, a compliment that our boy is clearly not used to hearing. Rob explains he just had a normal education, mentioning a subject that shocks the elder. And just like that, Rob decides to lean into his newfound genius status. Duran sees an opportunity, offering him a job checking the village ledgers. He hands the book to Rob, a silent test of his supposed intellect. He breezes through the calculations, unlocking a new skill for his efforts, and his math skill levels up at an alarming, slightly unhinged rate. But the mental gymnastics leave him completely drained. He checks his status, his eyes fixed on one particular line. He prays that the mild status never ever changes. Kira asks if he's all right, and he admits he's just worried about his impending monster transformation. You know, the usual. He asks to do his own research, but Duran reminds him the books are all in Elvish. The Elder explains a translation skill exists for avid readers like him. And so, his late-night lessons in the Elvish language begin. Duran patiently guides him through the strange new alphabet. He focuses intently, believing the lesson is starting to sink in. The strange foreign script fills the page before him, until suddenly, the words begin to shift into a language he can understand. But the process is agonizing, feeling like his brain is being put through a blender. Kira points out in alarm that his nose has started to bleed, and the system helpfully informs him he's suffering from localized brain damage. That's not good. Kira screams for Duran to cast a healing spell as the damage ticks up. Rob wonders if this is how you get a translation skill or just a fatal aneurysm. As his friends watch in horror, he decides it's definitely the aneurysm. The world begins to distort as the damage to his mind rapidly increases. The system glitches out, but still manages to grant him a new skill, auto-translate. His entire status screen begins to reconfigure as he lies unconscious on the table. Elsewhere in some unknown void, a coin is flipped to decide his fate. 3 shadowy figures watch on, placing their bets on the outcome. The result seems to surprise and annoy the unseen observers. Back in the village, the night passes quietly. Rob sleeps soundly, recovering from his mental ordeal. He wakes with a jolt, his eyes glowing as the system announces he's reached level 11. He collapses onto a couch, complaining that all he wanted to do was read a book. But the painful experience paid off, finally unlocking the auto-translate skill he so desperately needed. He wonders if the system glitch means he's trapped in a virtual world. He sits up with a start, relieved to be conscious again. Kira rushes in, frantically asking if he remembers her. He smiles, relieved to see a familiar, if not exactly friendly, face. She dryly points out that he must have brain damage, because she's never been friendly. Rob apologizes, admitting he doesn't know what happened. She asks if he truly remembers nothing from the ordeal. He just laughs it off, joking about all the brain damage. But Kira isn't amused, reminding him how close he came to death. She admits she couldn't bear to lose another friend so soon. Rob explains that sarcasm is just his way of coping. He smiles, relieved that none of the damage was permanent. He adds that while the system is never wrong, it does have a dark sense of humor. The idea of a talking system leaves her completely baffled. He clarifies that the notifications just have a certain personality. She warns him to keep that to himself, as that's a classic sign of madness. He quickly changes the subject, asking what exactly happened to him. She recounts how Duran used a spell to analyze his condition, and the results were, to put it mildly, not great. But hey, at least he got a new skill out of the whole ordeal. She explains that Riardan saved him, but there's a bigger problem now. Just then, the sound of an angry mob echoes from outside. An entire crowd of villagers has gathered, torches in hand. Kira notes they've been there for hours, and Rob tries to find a silver lining. He nervously asks if they tried, and her answer is not reassuring. She tells him to stay put while she goes to get Riardan. But Rob is surprisingly calm, ready to test his new skill. He figures the odds are better than what he's used to. She tells him she'll be back, and he offers a very solid backup plan. He sits down, ready to find out if this book will kill him or finally give him some answers. He opens the book to the first chapter, The Cataclysm. But the angry shouts from outside make it impossible to focus. Their demands for his removal echo through the empty halls. He tries to block it out, wondering what kind of fantasy caffeine they're on. But their words cut deep, and his patience finally snaps. His diplomacy skill helpfully suggests this is a bad idea. Outside, the crowd has grown larger and more creative with their signs. Their fear and anger fill the night air. So Rob decides to face them head-on, throwing open the door. He introduces himself, then demands they let him get some sleep. The door slams shut, leaving the angry mob outside. Riardan calmly decides to put some junior rangers on crowd control. The white-haired warrior stands guard, mostly worried about his property value. Outside, one of the new guards is already getting sleepy on the job. Rob, meanwhile, can't sleep, missing the simple comforts of his old life. A sudden noise from the back of the house catches his attention. The back door slowly creaks open into the darkness. He grabs his sword, wondering where the guards have gone. A young elf with wide, nervous eyes peeks inside. The intruder steps into the hall, and Rob prepares to identify the new threat. His skill reveals a level 8 baker's apprentice who is both terrified and determined, so Rob decides to try a friendly, disarming greeting. He calmly asks the boy if he really wants to do this. The young elf responds with a terrified scream. He lunges forward, shouting a name as Rob uses a cloth to block. The blade tears through the fabric with ease, but Rob has already vanished, leaving the elf utterly confused. A voice from behind tells him he's looking the wrong way. The elf spins around, swinging his knife in a panic, but Rob easily catches his wrist, stopping the attack cold. The knife clatters to the floor, easily disarmed. Pinned against the wall, the boy begs for a quick end. He accuses Rob of killing someone named Farrell. Just then, Kira arrives to find the commotion. She asks if he sleeps with his sword, a valid question at this point, but Rob just waves her off, insisting he has it handled. He calmly tells the would-be assassin that it's getting late. He returns the knife, telling the boy to go home and get some sleep. Back inside, he casually calls it a light assassination attempt. He realizes their plan, prove he's a monster by having him kill a child. Kira tries to comfort him, insisting he's not a monster, but Rob pulls away, the weight of his thoughts too heavy. He tells her he's finally read about the cataclysm. He learned that the humans, losing the war, created a final weapon, a magical bomb so powerful it destroyed them in the process. He admits the story sounds disturbingly familiar to his own world's history. Kira watches as he grapples with this grim parallel. She reminds him that everyone makes their own choices, and his was to show mercy. She tells him he's a kind man and hopes he can finally rest. His status screen updates, adding completely drained. Priorities, people. The next morning, a new day dawns on the village. But Rob hasn't slept a wink, still on edge from the night before. The white-haired warrior finds him, admitting he couldn't sleep either. Rob jokes that he was just waiting for more assassins, but he refuses to report the boy, showing mercy for the kid who was pushed too far. The warrior smiles, telling him to grab his sword anyway, because it's time for Rob to finally choose his class. As they walk, Rob feels the villagers' hatred, but Kira vows to protect him. He's stunned by her offer, knowing it would make her an outcast. But she admits her reputation can't get any worse, with no one left to disappoint. She admits that with Menta gone, she has no one left. But Rob reminds her that his own loneliness status disappeared when they met. She pushes back, blaming herself for what happened to her friend. He jokes that she's his third best friend right behind his sword. Their walk leads them to a massive, glowing crystal in the town square. Kira explains its origins are a mystery, but it survived the cataclysm. She jokes that she can read his mind, which he almost believes. For a second, anyway. Turns out she's just messing with him. But she does claim to know which class he's going to choose. She explains that while the choice isn't permanent, it's best to stick with one. Rob asks about the level cap, but Kira explains no one has ever reached it. She boasts that at level 28, she's already a seasoned warrior for her age. Rob considers becoming a ranger to finally get the villagers to like him, but Kira is certain he's going to choose the berserker class. He panics, explaining he's trying to avoid the battle-crazed human stereotype. She just smiles, completely sure of what he'll do. He asks how it works, and she tells him to just touch the crystal. With a deep breath, Rob places his hand on the glowing artifact. A system window appears, asking him to begin the selection process. He scrolls through the options, noting he'd rather not die as a candlestick maker. He immediately rules out any magic classes, given his spectacular failure earlier. Pugilist is also a no-go. Punching monsters seems like a terrible life choice. Swordmaster sounds tempting, especially with his existing skill. But in the end, he makes his choice and confirms it. Kira approaches with a knowing smile, asking what he picked. She tells him she already knows, having used her identify skill, and she smugly points out that Berserker suits his build perfectly. Rob pulls up his stats, confirming he is now a level 1 Berserker. She's never going to let him live this down. He scrolls through his new abilities, a powerful set of combat skills. He admits the choice just feels right, like a furnace that needs fuel. Kira acknowledges his resolve, telling him Riardan is waiting. They arrive at a training ground, where everyone's stats are apparently public knowledge. So much for privacy. Riardan gathers the trainees, announcing Rob's arrival. The others are less than thrilled, muttering about the monster in their midst. Rob notes the chilly reception, but Kira warns him not to expect any friends here. He just smiles, teasing that he's seen her crack a smile before. Riardan cuts in, explaining that with their numbers dwindling, they need all the help they can get. But one of the elves, Tarek, openly scoffs at the idea. So Riardan suggests he welcome Rob with a friendly sparring session. Rob panics, claiming he's never been in a fight, but Kira reminds him of the 100 spiders he just fought, and the Lord of the Forest, a detail that shocks the other trainees. They can't believe he took down such a powerful monster. Rob, meanwhile, is completely lost in the conversation. The other trainees realize this fight might be a bad idea, but Tarek challenges him anyway, a sentiment that needs no translation. Riardan tells Rob to show them respect as they were on guard duty, and a chilling realization dawns on our boy. He confirms they were the ones guarding him last night. Tarek defiantly asks what he's getting at. Kira is ready to intervene, but Rob holds her back. Tarek impatiently demands the spar begin. Rob, ever the newcomer, asks about the rules of engagement, but Tarek gives him a swift lesson, sweeping his legs out from under him. Rob hits the ground, learning there are no countdowns in a real fight. The elf follows up with a kick, welcoming him to the harsh reality of Ixatan. He raises his blade, ready to end this spar with a decisive blow. The sword crashes down, narrowly missing Rob's head. But our boy has already rolled to safety, back on his feet. Tarek drops his sword in shock at the human's speed. Rob then tosses his own weapon aside, refusing to fight an unarmed elf. Tarek takes the gesture as an insult, refusing to be looked down on. Rob squares up, promising a fair fight, unlike the one Tarek gave him. He calls out Tarek's actions from the night before, earning a swift punch to the face. But Rob retaliates with a powerful blow of his own. He follows up with a tackle, slamming the elf into the dirt. Tarek flips the script, pinning Rob and unleashing a flurry of blows. He screams about humans being liars, but Rob just takes the hits. The elf's rage is completely out of control, until the white-haired warrior finally steps in to stop the beating, and Riardan's voice booms across the training ground, demanding an end to the fight. Riardan demands to know what's going on. Tarek immediately accuses Rob of trying to kill him. His status screen confirms he's an all-around fun guy, and apparently a midwife. But Rob points back, insisting Tarek has it all backward. The elf calls him a liar, claiming he's just bitter about losing the spar. Kira steps in to defend him, and Tarek accuses Rob of hiding behind her. Riardan closes his eyes, clearly tired of the drama already. He asks Rob if he has any proof to back up his claim. Rob explains that an assassin got in last night while Tarek was on duty. When questioned, the elf can only stammer, his guilt written all over his face. But another trainee steps in, telling Tarek to just admit the truth. With a heavy sigh, the elf confesses that it was his fault. The white-haired warrior demands a full explanation. The scene flashes back to the night before, with Tarek fast asleep on the job. He's shaken awake, learning he slept right through his shift. He panics, but his friend has no idea how long he was out. Truly, the A-team of security. Tarek realizes the human was left completely unguarded. His friend grabs him, furious that anyone could have gotten in. Tarek suggests they check on Rob, an idea his friend immediately rejects. He refuses to risk Riardan finding out about their epic failure. The white-haired warrior erupts in fury at their incompetence. He lectures the two trainees while Rob watches, completely lost. Kira explains that the other guard simply fell asleep on the job. Riardan offers a formal apology, but Rob waves it off. He uses an earth saying that leaves the elf utterly baffled. He adds that he's fine except for his now broken nose. Tarek is forced to offer a reluctant, mumbled apology. Rob accepts, then asks for ice before Kira reminds him of his own skills. Forgetting you have magic is a classic rookie mistake. He activates his life surge ability, and in a flash of green light, his face is completely healed. With his face healed, Rob tries to start over with a friendly introduction, but they're all just staring in shock, realizing he has a regeneration skill. He casually confirms it's a level 4 skill, a fact that only deepens their confusion. A long-haired elf scoffs, attributing his power to the human fast learner trait. Kira explains that this is the very trait that lets humans level up so quickly. She points out he's already level 11, having skipped the usual life-threatening prerequisites for his skill. He's not sure if that was a compliment or an accusation. So much for making friends. The elf smirks, claiming he's never known true hardship since arriving. But Rob's expression hardens as he lists his near-death experiences. He ends with the Lord of the Forest, daring her to call him lucky one more time. The long-haired elf unleashes her rage, screaming that she lost her family in the war. But Rob can only insist that it wasn't his fault. Her response is a brutal punch, and the system helpfully diagnoses a cracked cheekbone. The white-haired warrior steps in, reminding them this is a place for training, not personal vendettas. The elf reluctantly backs down as Kira holds Rob back. Riardan sighs, announcing a break from sparring to focus on circuit training. He leaves them with a grim warning about the consequences of any fatalities. Kira checks on Rob, offering to show him around while he heals. They watch a young ranger practice, and Rob feels a strange sense of familiarity. The young elf, Orntol, is then called over by the warrior. Rob immediately recognizes the young elf from the forest. He explains they met for all of 2 seconds before Orntal fled. Orntal admits Rob looks different when he's not covered in dirt. Kira then introduces him to Zamira, a skilled swordswoman, and points out the 2 thickheads he's already met. The white-haired warrior is Vulto, and the one who broke his nose is Tarek. Rob notes Tarek's unusual hair color, but Kira warns him to drop it. She whispers that his grandfather was a human, and it all clicks for Rob. But she explains he was just covering for his best friend, a loyalty Rob understands. Just then, a blade flies through the air, signaling the start of training. A blade narrowly misses Rob's head. The long-haired elf smirks, claiming her hand slipped. Kira introduces her as Aaliyah, her least favorite person in the village. She warns Rob that fighting Aaliyah isn't even worth the XP. Aaliyah challenges him to another round of target practice, but Rob immediately surrenders, much to her surprise. He turns to Kira, asking if she'd like to handle this one. Smart move. And Kira accepts the challenge with a terrifyingly eager grin. In the training ring, she brings her massive sword down on Aaliyah. The blade slams into the dirt, barely missing its target. Rob and Vulto watch from the sidelines, completely stunned. He admits that unleashing Kira seemed like a good idea at the time. But the spar quickly devolves into a one-sided beatdown. Rob and Zamira can only watch in horrified silence. He realizes this fight isn't even about him anymore. Apparently, these two have a history. Tarek takes this as an opportunity to taunt Rob again, but his taunt is cut short by a furious shout. He immediately backs down, deciding later is much, much better, because Kira is still very, very busy, unleashing all her pent-up grief and rage on her rival. Aaliyah accuses Kira of being too lost in bloodlust to save Menta. Kira's only response is a furious blow to the face, but Aaliyah continues her verbal assault, claiming everyone knows Kira only ever cared for herself. But before Kira can go any further, Riardan finally intervenes. He reminds her that no matter the reason, this kind of infighting is unacceptable. Their village is too vulnerable to lose warriors to petty squabbles. As punishment, Kira is banned from training and assigned to patrol duty. Aaliyah can't resist one last taunt as Kira tries to argue for Rob. As for Rob, his training is about to get a whole lot harder. Riardan tells them the coddling is over. It's time to get to work. Kira offers to handle any bullies for him, but Rob insists he'll be fine. But he's not exactly feeling the love from his new classmates. The training begins with archery practice, and Rob struggles to keep up. The results speak for themselves. Our boy is not a natural marksman. An arrow suddenly zips past his head, narrowly missing him. The young ranger offers a less than convincing apology for the accident. Later, Rob asks Duran if he'll teach him magic, but the elder has questions of his own, about Earth. Rob realizes this is just another form of punishment. The training continues with sword practice, and Rob's raw strength shatters his opponent's wooden blade. The elf reminds him to be glad they aren't using live steel. Meanwhile, his lessons with Duran are just as exhausting. The physical training is relentless, and Rob struggles to keep pace with the elven trainees, but he pushes himself, determined not to fall behind. Every sparring session is a brutal, humbling experience. He's thrown, pinned, and completely outmatched at every turn. The system rewards him for running like a child, and Rob offers his heartfelt thanks. But the system's bribery is met with a simple, unimpressed thought. His lessons with Duran continue, explaining the concept of video games. The elder asks if Rob considers this world to be just a game, but Rob insists this violent, freaky world is all too real. He knows this isn't where he wanted to be, but he's here now, and he's determined to make it count. Even Vulto offers a rare moment of encouragement. He continues to train, even if he's not the person he wants to be. He's becoming someone he can finally respect. And his efforts finally pay off, unlocking a skill through sheer statistical probability. His lessons with Duran continue, with the elder now fascinated by germ theory. And his training continues, his form growing sharper with every block. Zamira watches from the sidelines, her expression unreadable. She finally offers a quiet word of approval for his progress, then tests his reflexes by throwing a dagger at him. Rob catches it with a confident smile, his senses now heightened. Zamira seems impressed, readying herself for the next exchange. Later, Rob tries to explain the concept of microscopic organisms to Duran. The elder is so horrified he feels the need to go bathe, vigorously. And the training continues, a constant clash of steel under the evening sky. Vulto easily bests one of the younger trainees in a spar. Rob, meanwhile, swings his own blade with newfound confidence. His powerful, fluid movements catch Vulto's attention. The white-haired warrior approaches, a question on his mind. He asks about Rob's sword, identifying it as dwarven steel. Rob admits he has no idea what that is. Of course he doesn't. Volto inspects the blade, explaining its legendary properties. He returns the weapon with a warning. A sword is only as good as its wielder. Rob watches him leave, wondering if that was the elven version of a compliment. Elsewhere, two elves discuss a need for confirmation, preparing to move with haste. The two elves find the dungeon has grown much larger. But the older warrior realizes they're already too late. A level 36 Minotaur erupts from the well, its status simply enraged. The scene shifts to a quiet moment, with Kira offering Rob some new gear. Back in the woods, the two elves are running for their lives. They realize they'll have to fight this thing alone. The beast smashes the ground as the elves leap to safety. They scramble to evade the creature's massive, crushing fists. But Kira is done running, activating her Circle of Death skill. She becomes a whirlwind of steel, slicing deep into the monster's side. The younger elf blocks the crushing blow but is sent flying back. From the trees, the older warrior unleashes a volley of arrows, but the magical shafts barely scratch the monster's thick hide. The beast growls, clearly not a fan of acupuncture. The ranger remains calm, readying his next shot from the branches. Enraged, the Minotaur charges straight for him. The younger warrior sees an opening, hoping the beast has a weak spot. He brings his massive blade down, slicing into its leg. The creature roars in agony, finally feeling the sting of their assault. And from above, the older elf dives in for the finishing blow. He plunges his blade into the beast's back as Kira slashes from below. The combined assault sends the Minotaur stumbling back. The ranger calls for Kira to deliver the final blow. She answers with a powerful strike that tears through the monster's chest. The system confirms the kill, and Kira offers a grimly satisfied smile. The ranger offers a backhanded compliment on her messy victory, but their celebration is cut short by a new threat from the sky. And it seems the griffin brought friends, a basilisk and a three-headed dog. The ranger knows they're outmatched, calling for a retreat to protect the village. And back home, the alarm bell rings out, a desperate warning of the coming storm. Rob emerges to find the village in a state of controlled chaos. In the town square, the great crystal pulses with power. Volto explains the elders are charging the village's shield, which apparently means they're all about to die. Just then, Kira and the older ranger return from their patrol. Riardan explains the dungeon is now spawning powerful monsters. He gathers the trainees, delivering the grave news. Mythical beasts now circle their home, drawn by the crystal. He declares they must cut the problem off at the source, and his gaze falls upon the trainees, much to Rob's dismay. Volto rallies the troops for a good old-fashioned dungeon crawl. As the village's shield hums overhead, Volto is buzzing with anticipation, but Rob wonders if he's the only one who's terrified. Riardan explains their mission: support the elite rangers and follow their every command. A party invitation from Riardan suddenly appears before him. He accepts, and the stats of the entire party are revealed. He knows the risk, but the temptation to level up is overwhelming. With the briefing over, Riardan gives the signal to move out. Kira turns to Rob, ready to head into the dungeon. But he suddenly stops her, saying he's not going. She looks at him, her voice pleading as she says she needs him. She reminds him they've already conquered this dungeon once together. But Volto cuts her off, calling Rob too much of a liability. Another trainee speaks up, vouching for Rob's strength in combat. But Riardan is firm, refusing to take that kind of risk. And with a heavy heart, Rob admits that they're right. Riardan takes this as confirmation, urging the squad to move out. Kira tries to reassure him, saying he can watch their progress. He can only look down, reminded of the party screen. She gives a final wave, telling him to look after the younger ranger. He watches them go, hoping she's right about their chances. The mythical beasts circle the village, their growls echoing against the shield. The griffin is the first to test the barrier, its claws scraping against the energy. Inside, the village archers prepare to defend their home. Rob stands among them, ready to do his part. But their first volley of arrows just bounces off their own shield. Well, that's a design flaw. Outside the barrier, however, the basilisk is getting a face full of angry projectiles. It rears back with a furious hiss, preparing to retaliate. An elven commander shouts for his squad to carve a path. He leads the charge, his blade slicing deep into the monster's flesh. With the beast wounded, he calls for the others to follow him into the woods. The elven commander activates a speed skill, leading his squad into the forest. Rob watches from the wall, relieved to see they made it through the shield safely. But another guard shouts a warning. A new threat has appeared on the east side. A monstrous three-headed dog charges through the woods, its eyes glowing with rage. With a look of grim resolve, Rob decides to handle this one himself. And without a second thought, he leaps from the village wall into the fray. The beast slams against the shield, and the system offers a very helpful size comparison. Rob knows he can't risk leveling up, so he decides to lead it to the other warriors. He taunts the creature, trying to draw its attention away from the village. He offers to be the bait, a plan that seems both brave and incredibly stupid. He activates a speed skill, running for his life from the massive beast. Meanwhile, the elven commander slices through the basilisk. He stands victorious over the fallen monster's corpse, but his victory is cut short by a new sound. As Rob leads their next uninvited guest right to them, he fires a warning shot, trying to keep its attention. But the beast just catches the arrow in its teeth. It snaps the shaft in two, completely unimpressed. He's sent flying, trying not to fight back too hard, because he knows he can't afford the experience points. The elven commander unleashes a piercing shot. The warriors swarm the beast, hoping for a killing blow, but they know they have to take the risk. The monster finally crashes to the ground, and the system confirms the kill, much to Rob's horror. The commander looks down as Rob expresses his relief. He then asks for a little help getting out from under the corpse. The commander scolds him for not even drawing his sword. Rob tries to explain he was avoiding the experience gain, but the elf insists he must do what's necessary to survive. But Rob's attention is suddenly drawn elsewhere. He pulls up the party screen and his heart sinks. Every single one of them is unconscious, bleeding, and on the verge of death. He warns the commander, who tells him to go and take Orntal with him. The commander explains that he's needed here to defend the village. He tells Rob to save as many as he can, as the two of them race into the woods. Their mission is clear: head back into that cursed dungeon. At the entrance, Rob tries to steel their nerves for the fight ahead. He knows he'll have to risk the leveling high, but he'll do it for Kira. And with that, Orntal finds his courage, ready to save their friends. Rob offers a reassuring smile, telling Orntal he'll see him at the bottom. The two of them rappel down into the darkness of the well. As they descend, Orntal apologizes for his initial fear, and Rob admits he was too embarrassed to speak to them properly. He extends a hand, ready for a fresh start. Orntal accepts, and Rob's diplomacy skill levels up. He wryly notes that talking his way out of a dungeon seems unlikely. He then leads the way, warning his new friend about the spiders, and his own screaming. They enter a cavern filled with the remains of the arachnid horde. Rob figures Kira's team handled them, but Orntal wonders what could have possibly defeated them. Orntal spots a grim sign of the battle up ahead. A trail of blood and broken arrows leads them down a dark corridor. Rob volunteers to go first, and Orntal is not about to argue with that. He checks the party screen, seeing their friend's health dropping fast. But for now, they're all still alive, though some are unconscious. As he urges them to hurry, a dark tendril suddenly wraps around his leg. It yanks him off his feet, sending him screaming down the stairs. He tumbles violently down the long flight of stone steps. The tendril retracts into a swirling vortex of darkness at the end of the hall, and Rob stares in horror, realizing it's just like the portal that brought him here. He's dragged kicking and screaming into the abyss. But for a moment, he sees a familiar blue sky, wondering if this is his way home. Orntal screams for him to stop, reminding him of their friends. But Rob makes his choice. He has to save Kira. The portal then reveals its true form, a massive toothed maw. Well, that's not ominous at all. He reacts on instinct, slicing through the creature's tendrils. He refuses to be devoured by a floating mouth hole. Orntal screams for him to hold on, preparing to act. He hurls a small, explosive orb at the monster, and it detonates in a massive blast of blue energy. The blast sends the creature's tendrils slithering back into the darkness. Rob watches as the monstrous maw retreats down the corridor, and just like that, the terrifying portal monster is gone. Orntal helps him up, identifying the beast as a creeping shadow. Rob realizes this rescue mission is already going completely off the rails. Orntal begins to panic, convinced they're about to die, but Rob offers a word of encouragement, putting his faith in the young ranger. With their resolve renewed, they prepare to press forward, only to find their path blocked by a massive, time-consuming labyrinth. The system rewards his pep talk with a new leadership skill, right as he trips over his own feet. Truly inspiring. They run for their lives from a level 18 clumsy cyclops, and Orntal finally understands Rob's terror. A sudden realization dawns on the young elf's face, but Rob yanks him to a halt, telling him to watch his step, because the entire hallway ahead is one giant pressure plate trap, and their one-eyed pursuer is not slowing down. Rob can only watch as Orntal navigates the path with elven grace. He, on the other hand, wobbles through, trying not to get flattened. The Cyclops' massive foot slams down, narrowly missing him. He frantically hops between tiles as Orntal shouts encouragement. With a final leap, he sprints for the end of the corridor. The Cyclops somehow manages to avoid every single trap, but as it lunges forward, Rob decides to change its luck. He raises his massive sword high and slams it down onto a pressure plate. A massive blade erupts from the floor, slicing into the beast. The trap sends the monster flying into another one on the ceiling. The system confirms the kill, and Rob is relieved to see he gained no XP. As they continue through the labyrinth, Rob worries they're lost for good. But Orntol spots something, a sign of hope in the darkness. He points out a marker left by their friends, though Rob remains skeptical. Rob decides they'll have to risk it and press forward. The dungeon reveals itself to be a massive, sprawling labyrinth. They find a triggered spike pit, but no sign of their friends. Orntol deduces that the party must have doubled back. Their new path is blocked by a series of massive swinging blades. But the blood on the floor confirms their friends came this way. They carefully navigate the deadly pendulum trap over a chasm. Rob freezes in terror, relying on Orntol to guide him through. On the count of 3, he makes a desperate leap of faith. He lands safely, remarking on the close shave, much to Orntol's confusion. He spots another arrow, a sign that they're finally back on track, which immediately leads them into a frantic chase with a horde of shadow beasts. They barely manage to slam a door shut, holding back the tide of monsters. But the path splits, and with no markers, Rob lets Orntol make the call, a choice that leads them right into the maw of a massive tentacled beast. Well, so much for beginner's luck. Rob finally has enough, turning to carve a path through the monster, as Orntol unleashes a volley of glowing arrows from the ground. With the beast weakened, Rob tells his friend to deliver the final blow. He insists Orntol take all the experience, desperate to avoid the leveling high. The young ranger obliges, earning himself a new level in the process. Rob thanks the young elf, explaining his new stat points went into perception. But their path is blocked by another shadowy, tentacled beast. He meets its charge with a powerful, glowing swing of his own. The fight only levels his brawling skill, much to his relief. With his resolve renewed, he tells Orntol to press forward. His new perception stat immediately pays off, helping him spot a hidden trap. He's saved from a poison dart by Orntol, leveling his resistance yet again. He heals himself as the young ranger points them toward the exit. Rob explains his role as the tank, an earth term for the designated punching bag. The young elf is thrilled by this promotion in their relationship. He tells Orntol that saving his life this many times makes them friends for life. But their heartwarming moment is cut short by a single ominous drop from above. They look up to find a massive dark substance clinging to the ceiling. It forms into a monstrous shape, trapping several elves within its dark mass. Rob and Orntol can only stare in horror at the sight. The creature takes the form of a corrupted ranger, and Orntol recognizes a name. Rob immediately grabs his friend, telling him to run for the door. They sprint down the corridor as a volley of shadowy arrows rains down. The monstrous entity detaches from the wall, crawling after them with terrifying speed. A powerful strike sends them both tumbling down a long flight of stairs. The fall ends with a rather undignified collision. They pick themselves up at the bottom of the stairs, dazed but alive. Orntol realizes they weren't followed, but Rob is staring at something else in horror. A level 29, bestial chimera emerges from the shadows, its eyes burning with rage. Rob thinks it's the scariest thing he's ever seen, but Orntol points out he's wrong, because a level 28 queen spider and her entire family are also here. This dungeon has terrible Yelp reviews. Amidst the chaos, Orntol's elven ears pick up a faint sound. He spots Aaliyah, desperately fending off a horde of smaller spiders. And just beyond her, they find the rest of their friends, all unconscious on the floor. Rob's arachnophobia kicks in, wishing he'd packed some bug spray. He hides behind a rock, complaining that no creature needs that many eyes. Orntol asks for a firebomb, but Rob knows they don't have nearly enough. He hands over an explosive orb, telling the young elf to trust him. Orntol prepares to throw the orbs, their only hope against the swarm. The first blast takes out a few spiders, proving the plan can work. With his arachnophobia skill active, Rob winds up for a throw of his own. The explosion is massive, amplified by his phobia-fueled damage boost. The attack nets him a massive experience gain, leaving Orntol speechless. Rob tells him they can talk later, as their problems are far from over, because the queen spider lets out a furious roar, its eyes fixed on them. Rob's arachnophobia kicks into absolute overdrive. He screams for Orntol to run as the queen spider attacks. Grabbing his friend, he pulls him toward safety. Their last explosion clears out the smaller minions. The XP gain levels up his berserker class, unlocking a new lifesteal ability. He immediately demands more ammo from a terrified Orntol. With a new plan in mind, he prepares for another throw. He unleashes the orb with a defiant roar, bracing himself against the massive explosion. The new lifesteal skill kicks in, and Rob's terror turns into a crazed, triumphant laugh. He roars that he's done playing fair, unleashing his firebombs on the egg-laying nightmare. The queen spider's smoking corpse hits the ground. The victory pushes him to level 14, his phobia skill growing even stronger. Orntol looks up at him, calling his name in fear. But Rob just stares back, his eyes wide and empty. He calls out to Orntol, who is cowering behind him. The young ranger is now officially traumatized for life. But Rob just snaps out of it, offering a sheepish apology for his phobia. He then reminds his friend that their problems are far from over. The queen's brood swarms forward, a tide of clicking legs and glowing red eyes. Rob tells Orntol to get the potions to their friends while he handles the distraction. He offers a confident smile, promising he's not about to die here. He leaps into the fray, his mind racing through all the advantages he has. With a wild grin, he carves a path through the horde, experience points flooding his vision. Orntol can only watch in awe, convinced the human has completely lost his mind. Meanwhile, the young ranger has his own problem to deal with. The bestial chimera lets out a furious roar, its snake-like tail hissing. Orntol prays for his stealth to hold as he sneaks past the monster. He just needs it to look away for a single crucial moment. The chimera's snake-like tail lashes out, narrowly missing the fleeing ranger. Orntol ducks behind a pillar, his heart pounding in his chest. He frantically works at a locked door, hoping for a quick escape. Meanwhile, Rob is still carving his way through the endless spider horde. He lands amidst the swarm, wondering if this nightmare will ever end. He even tries apologizing for killing their mother. The constant bites earn him a new passive skill to help with all the bleeding, and another skill for taking so much damage. With no other choice, he retreats up a long flight of stairs, leading the entire swarm right toward the room with the chimera. He decides he's about to do something incredibly stupid. With no other options, he leaps down the stairs into the horde. The landing shatters both his legs, a fact the system helpfully points out. He laments that the superhero landing looked much cooler in the movies. But his chronic bone breaking earns him a new pun-based passive skill. He wobbles to his feet, his status screen a laundry list of problems. He slams the door shut, trapping himself inside with the swarm. One of the creatures lunges forward with a furious screech, but a crazed grin spreads across his face as he finishes his thought. Back in the main chamber, Orntol and Aaliyah wonder where the spiders have gone. Aaliyah complains that Orntol just had to ask where the spiders went. As the knocking continues, Tarek leaps forward with daggers drawn. They both stare in shock, realizing it's Orntol at the door. He explains he's here to save them, a statement that confuses Aaliyah. When asked how they got past the queen, Orntol proudly gives Rob the credit. The two elves are completely floored by the news. Orntol grins, adding that Rob burned the monster to a crisp. Aaliyah tends to Kira, wondering what happened to the other chimera. She gently lifts her rival, trying to give her a healing potion. Tarek then asks the obvious question, where is the human now? Orntol explains that Rob is currently doing his absolute best. And back in the spider-filled room, our boy is proving him right. The fight has pushed him to level 14, with points to spare. He unleashes a whirlwind of steel against the endless horde. But in the main chamber, the chimera smashes against the door. Orntol reports that he's given everyone a healing potion. Tarek holds the unconscious Vulto, blaming himself for the injury. The chimera's fist smashes through the stone wall. He panics, realizing the structure won't hold for long. Aaliyah knows they have to draw it away, but 3 against 1 is a losing fight. Orntol volunteers to be the distraction, hoping to buy them some time. But Tarek refuses to let another friend sacrifice themselves. Orntol reminds them they haven't forgotten about their secret weapon. Back in the other room, Rob is still deep in his personal nightmare. He ends another one, his brawling skill leveling up in the process. He cuts through the swarm, his swordsmanship growing with every swing. A cold, determined look settles on his face. He stands over the fallen, a terrifying figure in the darkness. Even the spider royalty seems to be having second thoughts. He screams at the retreating horde, telling them to get out of his room. The last of the spiders flee in terror from the top of the stairs. Orntol looks up, realizing the other monster is still lurking above. But Rob slams the door shut, determined to keep it that way. He checks his status, a laundry list of fractures, bleeding, and exhaustion. But he smiles, grateful that his new lifesteal skill is keeping him alive. His relief is cut short as the chimera takes a hit from Orntol's arrow. The beast just catches the next one in its teeth, completely unfazed. It then turns its rage on the door Rob just came through. The monster shoves a massive pillar aside, trying to reach them. Its snake-like tail whips out, sending Orntol flying through the air. Rob screams in horror as Orntol crashes hard against the stone floor. He rushes to his friend's side, who seems surprisingly casual about the whole thing. But the chimera's roar reminds them they're still on the menu. They scramble to their feet, but Orntol is clearly injured from the fall. Rob questions the elven stereotype of landing gracefully, a reference that is completely lost on his friend. Suddenly, a blast of energy strikes the beast from above. It seems their friends are finally waking up, and they are not happy. As the monster deflects another shot, Orntal tells Rob to save himself, but our boy isn't leaving anyone behind. He quickly pulls up his stats, ready to invest in a little more survivability. With Orntal on his shoulders, he makes a desperate run for it. He activates his speed skill, his running abilities leveling up on the fly. Orntal desperately asks if there's a plan. Rob's strategy is simple: survive until help arrives or hit the monster really hard. A question that Orntal points out is a little more complicated than it sounds. Just then, the cavern ceiling begins to crumble above them. A powerful beam of light erupts from the darkness. He barely dodges the attack, realizing he can't pull that off again. With no other choice, he makes a split-second decision. He apologizes to his perception stat and dumps his points into dexterity. He asks for an update, confirming the chimera is still hot on their trail. Orntal declares he'll slow the beast down. He fires a glowing arrow from Rob's shoulders. The shot lands true, striking the monster's chest. But the beast barely flinches, its rage undiminished. Rob activates his speed skill, needing just a small opening. He zips past the monster's legs, a blur of motion. But its snake-like tail lashes out, taking a hit from Orntal. The minor wound only enrages it further. Rob pushes himself to the limit, refusing to fail again. And the system helpfully informs him he's getting brain damage. The chimera's charge sends them both flying. Rob slams hard into the cavern wall. He hits the ground, the impact echoing through the chamber. He struggles to his feet, his head pounding. The system confirms his brain is taking a beating. Again, he stands on a ledge trying to focus his thoughts. But the enraged beast charges forward once more. Orntal can only scream a desperate warning from below. Rob tries to activate a skill, his mind refusing to cooperate. He grits his teeth, forcing his body to obey. He checks his stats, still level 14 with points to spare. He forces himself to activate a skill, just as the chimera closes in for the kill. Orntal can only watch in horror as Rob zips past. But Orntal isn't just standing by, unleashing a glowing arrow to draw its attention. And from above, Volto joins the fray, peppering the beast with a volley of arrows. He taunts the monster, refusing to be ignored. He drives another shaft deep into its skull. The chimera stumbles, weakened by the relentless assault. But Rob is sent flying, slamming hard into the cavern wall. His not-a-scratch skill activates, saving him from a fatal blow. The system glitches again, realizing it owes him a skill. And it retroactively grants him Step of the Wind. Better late than never, I guess. The skill immediately levels up 4 times in an instant. The power surge pushes him to level 15, and the leveling high kicks in hard. As the chimera roars, Aaliyah and Orntal continue their desperate attack. But the snake-like tail whips around, striking Volto in midair. The white-haired warrior is slammed into the wall, out of the fight. With the leveling high coursing through him, Rob dumps all 10 of his new points into strength. The choice immediately unlocks a new skill, Bulk Up. The skill levels up instantly, power surging through his body. He also gains Power Slash, a perfect complement to his new strength. And just like before, it levels up on the spot. He activates Bulk Up, his muscles straining against his clothes. He combines it with Step of the Wind, becoming a blur of motion, then ignites his blade with a final skill, Power Slash. With a furious roar, he charges forward to meet the beast. Just as the chimera prepares to finish off Orntal, he meets the monster's charge, driving his blade into its jaw, and with a surge of raw power, he holds the massive beast at bay. He turns to his friend, a crazed, blood-soaked grin on his face. But the reality of his situation quickly crashes down on him. The chimera retaliates with a furious, crushing swipe, and Rob is sent flying, wondering what he was even thinking. He tightens his grip on his sword, refusing to let go. He slams into the wall, using his blade to break the fall. The system rewards his suffering with new skill levels. But the monster's snake-like tail lunges in for the kill. He leaps into the air, ready to meet the attack head-on. He braces for the impact, telling himself the pain will be worth it. With a powerful swing, he slices clean through the monster's tail. But the landing shatters his leg, a familiar and unwelcome sensation. He screams in agony, confirming that breaking bones never gets easier. The enraged chimera charges, and Rob desperately tries to move. He curses his regeneration skill for taking its sweet time. But from the sidelines, Orntal lets another arrow fly. The explosive shot shatters a massive rock in the beast's path. The blast engulfs the charging monster, buying them a precious few seconds. Rob looks down from the ledge, shocked by the monster's persistence. Orntal is down for the count as the chimera glares from the shadows. The beast charges forward, ready to end this fight for good. Rob grits his teeth, convinced this is his final moment, but he uses his last bit of strength to pull Orntol to safety. The young ranger takes the opening, unleashing a powerful triple shot. 3 glowing arrows fly straight toward the charging monster, and they find their mark, piercing deep into the creature's eye. The chimera roars in agony, its attack finally halted. Orntol looks at his friend, a silent thanks passing between them. Orntol offers a final, reassuring smile, but the blinded chimera lashes out in a final, desperate attack, and its claws find their mark, tearing through the young ranger. The beast roars as it plummets into the chasm below. Rob can only crawl toward his friend, pleading for it not to be real. His mind refuses to accept what his eyes are seeing. He holds Orntol's body, screaming his name in anguish. In the silence of the cavern, he's alone once more. He tries to rationalize it, to find any reason this could be undone. But the system's reward is a cruel, final confirmation of his loss. A single tear falls as the reality of his loss sinks in. But Orntol's status screen shows he's not gone yet, just fading. His mind races, his quick thinking skill activating in a panic. He desperately searches for a solution, for any advantage he might have. And then he remembers, Orntol had leveled up. He screams at his friend, trying to wake him from the brink. He begs him to put his unspent stat points into vitality. He pleads with the unconscious elf, hoping he can somehow hear him. And then a flicker of hope as Orntol's hand twitches. A green light glows from his wounds as the healing begins. The green light of regeneration begins to glow, mending the wounds that should have been fatal. Orntol coughs, his eyes fluttering open as his health stabilizes. Rob pulls him into a fierce, relieved hug. The young ranger can only offer a weak, grateful smile. The system rewards his life-saving math with a point in mind and a healthy dose of sarcasm. His own suffering unlocks a new passive skill, push through. But he worries about the cost of numbing the pain, of losing another piece of himself. Nearby, Aaliyah and Tarek are tending to their own wounds. As Rob and Orntol finally stagger into view, relieved to have found them, Aaliyah tells Tarek to back off, and he retorts that the feeling is mutual. They begin to climb, with Rob complaining that he's still broken, but Aaliyah points out that's the team motto right now. Nearby, Kira lies unconscious, still recovering from the fight. Rob gently tries to wake her, his voice soft. Her eyes flutter open, a look of relief washing over her as she sees his face. He reassures her that he's got her back, as she asks about the chimera. She manages a weak smile, teasing him about his very big sword. They embrace, her relief mixed with guilt for being taken out of the fight so early. He tells her that no one died, and that's thanks to her leadership. Elsewhere, Tarek frantically checks on Vulto, who just tells him to watch his own back. Aaliyah sits, shaken, admitting they should all be dead by now. Tarek adds that the monsters here aren't hunting for food, but for violence. Vulto reminds them of the Elder's teachings. Dungeons are wounds upon the world. Zamira collapses, asking if they even won, and Aaliyah confirms it was a narrow victory. With a final thanks, Zamira passes out cold. Rob looks at Kira, asking a simple but profound question. Aaliyah cuts in, admitting that if they knew how to heal these wounds, they wouldn't be here. But Vulto speaks up for Rob, telling Aaliyah he has their eternal gratitude for coming back. And for the first time, Aaliyah offers Rob a sincere, heartfelt apology and thanks. She then turns her attention to Kira, her expression unreadable. Rob can't resist a little teasing, asking if the chimera knocked some sense into her. But Zamira quickly shuts them both down, her patience clearly worn thin. Kira explains that while they can't heal the dungeon, they can destroy it. She leads them deeper into the cavern toward the source of the corruption, and there, she points to their final objective, a massive, glowing red core, the heart of the dungeon itself. She knows destroying it will end the threat, but Rob points out she can barely stand. He steps forward, insisting he'll take care of it, leaving Kira to wonder why. Zamira echoes the sentiment, asking why he's risking his life for them. Rob explains that Riardan asked him to, and apparently, he's a sucker for peer pressure. He admits he doesn't want to lose any more friends, and Kira finally relents. He offers a dramatic bow, which Kira finds deeply unsettling. She explains he'll have to climb the massive tower to reach it, but Orntol stops him, reminding him to take his sword. He begins the long, treacherous climb up the crumbling structure. He reaches the top and grabs the core, feeling a wave of dread wash over him. It's a feeling of pure, concentrated hatred, a malevolence that chills him to the bone. He realizes this object despises not just him, but all of existence. Back on the ground, he asks the obvious question, should they just smash it? But Kira explains that what comes after they destroy it is the real problem. Rob explains that destroying the core could cause the dungeon to collapse, and Vulto points out their only exit is now completely blocked. He asks if they happen to kill that shadowy amalgamation monster. Rob would rather risk implosion than face that thing again. And it seems the vote is unanimous. Smart move, team. With a final, heartfelt message blaming Aaliyah for everything, he brings his massive blade down on the dungeon's core. The scene shifts to the village, where life has returned to normal. Duran asks if Riardan is still watching for monsters, but the ranger is waiting for something else. He wanted to see them return with his own eyes. The survivors emerge from the woods, vowing that no one else will fall on their watch. And at the village gate, Riardan and Duran watch with relief as the party returns. Rob offers a cheerful wave, telling the ranger he didn't expect a miracle. But he decided to bring one back anyway. Kira dryly asks how long he practiced that line, and he proudly admits it took the whole trip. Duran tells him not to rest too long or he'll miss the party, a celebration that leaves both Rob and Kira completely baffled, because tonight, the entire village is celebrating their survival. As he walks through the crowd, he's stunned to hear his own name. Riardan explains that they all saw him defend their home and bring their people back safely. Rob approaches the elders, noting that their council seems a little smaller. The lead elder explains they sent for aid in case of a mass evacuation. Another adds that while they're safe, their allies must be warned of the new dungeon. But for now, they tell him to enjoy the party he's earned, an order Rob is happy to obey. He looks for his friends just as a familiar voice calls his name. He turns to find Zamira in formal attire, a rare and surprising sight. She introduces him to her parents, who apparently have something to say. After a bit of encouragement from his daughter, her father finally speaks up. He offers a reluctant thanks for Rob's role in bringing her home safely, and with a hand over his heart, he offers a genuine thank you, admitting she's their whole world. Rob humbly insists that Zamira would have done the same for him. Her father agrees, then notes that Rob doesn't seem to share his kind's hatred. Zamira explains her family survived the war, so she has no reason to hate him. Just then the feast is announced, and Rob's priorities immediately shift. Zamira invites him to eat, but he asks if anyone has seen Kira. He finds her at home, refusing to join the celebration. He tries to tempt her with burgers, but her stomach loudly betrays her. She insists he heard nothing, but his smug grin says otherwise. She tries to make excuses, but he insists on dragging her to the party. She finally admits no one cares if she's there, but Rob tells her that he does. Kira looks up at him, her expression softening at his words. She finally relents, admitting a burger does sound nice. And Rob delivers, presenting her with a masterpiece of Earth cuisine. He's already halfway through his own, lost in pure bliss. As they eat, Kira tells him she has a serious question to ask. Rob's mind immediately jumps to conclusions, a blush spreading across his face. But she just wants his advice on how to allocate her stat points. He slumps over, trying to play off his disappointment. So much for romance. He suggests asking Riardan, but she dismisses the idea immediately. She admits that Rob is the only one she feels comfortable asking. Rob is flattered by her trust, a rare compliment in this world. She explains that she admires his unconventional approach to leveling up. She trusts him to help her forge her own path, unlike the others. He pulls up her stats, noting the 5 points she earned from the Chimera. She explains her danger sense is a rare elven trait, one Riardan criticizes. He's always telling her to compensate for her instincts by investing in perception. Rob's advice is simple. Ignore them because they're all stupid. A bold take, but he's sticking to it. He insists they're just trying to hold her back from her true potential. He reminds her of her own strength, insisting she was born to be a warrior. But she argues that being a warrior doesn't help the village like being a ranger would. Rob explains that if Kira had been a ranger, she and the others would have perished in the dungeon. He reminds her of the fate of the senior rangers who went before them. He insists they needed a warrior with raw power to face the monsters, not a ranger. Kira smiles, thanking him for the unexpected pep talk. Rob then makes a personal request, asking her as a friend. He advises her to invest 3 points into vitality and continue to prioritize it with future level-ups. He explains his reasoning simply. He doesn't want her to die, and his diplomacy skill levels up. They sit in a moment of quiet understanding as Orenthal approaches in the background. Orenthal arrives, announcing he's been searching for them. Rob, misunderstanding, tells Orenthal he should go, thinking he was only looking for Kira. Orenthal clarifies he was looking for both of them, as the others are waiting. Rob sees they've saved him a seat, a gesture that reminds him of his friend Jason. Even Aaliyah offers a warm welcome, her arm still in a sling from the fight, and the entire table raises their mugs, finally accepting him as one of their own. He shares a drink with his former rival, but elsewhere the elders are still on edge. They anxiously await the arrival of reinforcements, knowing their safety depends on it. Meanwhile, a hooded figure travels through the woods, aware of the spreading corruption. He knows the monsters are drawn to the village's power source, a threat to the entire region. The elder knows that without aid, their home is doomed to fall. And one of those potential allies, a level 43 elf mage, is already on his way. The elf mage races through the woods, a corrupted beast hot on his heels. But his horse suddenly decides it's had enough of running. It turns to face the monster, and the mage questions his steed's life choices. In a panic, he unleashes a blast of holy light. The attack snaps the creature's antler, but fails to stop its charge. He tries to get his horse to run, unsure if it's brave or just suicidal. But the monster continues its relentless, shambling advance. With no other choice, he pools all of his remaining mana for one final attack. A massive beam of light engulfs the corrupted creature. He looks down at the remains, praying his horse will finally listen to him. He tries to bribe his horse with the promise of apples. With his steed properly motivated, he rides hard for his destination. His journey ends at the gates of the massive Revaton city. He makes a grand entrance by immediately falling off his horse. A guard helps him up, but the mage insists he has no time to rest. He stands before the city's council, who demand to know the reason for his intrusion. He explains he's a representative from the village, which has been attacked. But the mayor denies his request for aid, stating their forces are for their own defense. The other elders agree, their priority is protecting Revaton. The mayor then mentions Riardan, disappointed that such a powerful ranger isn't among their ranks. The elf mage realizes his plea is falling on deaf ears. He begs them to reconsider, reminding them of their shared history. He warns that if his village falls, the entire region will follow. But the mayor coldly dismisses his concerns, insulting his authority. He's escorted out, offered supplies for a journey home. A journey he's not even sure he can make. He vents his frustration to his horse, lamenting his failure. But his steed is far more interested in the complimentary apples. Priorities. He calls himself a fool, convinced he's failed his people, and unleashes his anger on an unsuspecting wooden post. His fist slams into the wood, a single act of defiance, but his anger quickly fades back into despair. He turns to his horse, his only companion, admitting his failure. He's then escorted from the city, the gates closing on any hope of aid. He wonders if the honor guard is really necessary. Seems a bit much for a failed diplomat, but he urges his horse onward, a new urgency in his voice, and with a sudden move, he leaves his escort in the dust. He tells his steed there's one last thing he has to do before they leave. He bursts back into the council chamber, demanding to send a message, and he makes it clear this message will be delivered personally. The mayor slams his fist down, demanding to know the meaning of this intrusion. He dismisses the mage's authority, calling him a child on a horse. But the elf insists he is a respected elder, with the right to contact the seneschal. The mayor warns him of the consequences for wasting such an important person's time. The mage accepts full responsibility, daring them to stop him. The mayor finally relents, allowing him in. But the horse has to stay outside. He's led into a grand chamber, where a massive blue crystal pulses with energy. He places his hand on the artifact, ready to make his call. A glowing blue orb emerges from the crystal's core. He kneels before it, ready to deliver his urgent message to the seneschal. He explains that mutated monsters are gathering outside his village, spawned from a new dungeon that threatens to bring another cataclysm. The powerful figure on the other end offers a formal thanks for the report. This is Silpyros, the level 76 elven seneschal, whose peeved status suggests he's not having a great day. But the mage isn't finished, adding that a human is now living among them. He claims the villagers are blind to the danger and asks the seneschal to overrule their judgment. He begs for troops to be sent, not just to fight monsters, but to end the human's life. The scene shifts to a grand palace nestled high in the snowy mountains. The seneschal walks through its massive doors, his purpose now clear. He calls out a name, his expression grim and determined. A shadowy figure on a throne remarks on his long climb. The seneschal addresses her as Queen Ragnavi, here on urgent business. Her scaled hand grips the throne, clearly annoyed by the intrusion. This is Ragnavi, the level 91 dragon queen, whose status screen is just a polite way of saying, run. She agrees his news must be important enough to summon the entire council. The scene shifts to the grand tower known as the Assembly of the Realm. Inside, the seneschal warns of the rapidly spreading infection. He insists they must devote resources to culling the creatures and finding a cure. He also admits there's a potential civil war brewing among his own people. The merfolk king dryly notes that there's always a civil war brewing among the elves. The dragon queen suggests the elves need a firmer hand. She adds that her own people know the price of disobedience. Another council member questions if the elves are truly so weak, but the seneschal explains that Ixaton is no ordinary forest. He warns that the infected creatures are a threat to them all. The queen seems bored by the lecture as he explains the village's weakness. A new voice joins the call, a level 76 dwarf stone warden. The seneschal confirms they're discussing the nameless village. The queen scoffs, wondering why they don't just teleport away. He explains they can't. The village has no such artifact. The dragon queen suggests they should just let nature take its course. The seneschal's fist crackles with golden energy as he slams it down on the table in a furious outburst. A bird-like council member tries to quiet the commotion, but the queen just smirks, amused by his temper. She challenges him to show his full might, a dare he readily accepts. The stone warden asks what's happening, learning this is just another Tuesday for the council. The queen begins to transform, mocking their fragility. But the Gelen Empress projects a calming aura, trying to de-escalate. The queen transforms back, calling the empress no fun for ruining her power trip. The dragon queen relents, agreeing they have more important things to discuss. The merfolk king then speaks up, adding that an elven ambassador also visited his realm. He explains the elf came with the exact same story, a story about the return of a human. The dwarf stone warden is shocked by the news, while the harpy king offers his own profound contribution to the debate. Truly, a meeting of great minds. The merfolk king clarifies that according to the report, it's only one human. The seneschal argues that's all the more reason to help, and the dwarf agrees. But the dragon queen remains suspicious, questioning if it's just a ploy for aid. The seneschal is taken aback by her deep-seated distrust. The seneschal demands to know what the dragon queen suggests. Her answer is a single word, reconnaissance. She insists they simply need more information before acting. The merfolk king agrees, offering to send an ambassador to the village. The Gelen Empress declares the matter settled, as the dwarf offers his own gassy contribution. The seneschal then turns to the harpy king for his opinion, who responds by promptly losing his lunch all over the table. He then flees the room, leaving the others to settle the vote without him. The stone warden signs off, calling the meeting a waste of time as usual. His monitor then promptly self-destructs. The seneschal is clearly unimpressed with the dwarf's dramatic exit. The dragon queen offers the merfolk king some friendly advice. She suggests that if he fails to handle the human, she will. Her eyes burn with a cold fire, determined to prevent another war. A few days later, a peaceful dawn breaks over the village. But inside, Rob is recovering from the previous night's celebration. He's woken by a cheerful greeting from Orntal. Rob, looking less than cheerful, manages a tired response. Orntal worries about his condition, but Rob explains it's just a hangover, a concept that is completely lost on the young elf. Orntal is still completely lost. Rob just waves it off as a human problem. Orntal then suggests a fist bump, an earth custom he's clearly eager to try. Rob agrees, though the timing feels a little off, and the two share a moment of cross-cultural bonding. Rob gives it a solid 8 out of 10, and Orntal vows to improve. Truly, a noble goal. But their practice session is interrupted by a very tired Kira. Rob explains that perfecting the fist bump is a serious art form. Just then, a ringing sound echoes, and Kira questions the source. Rob confirms it wasn't him, and her expression immediately darkens. The village bell rings out, signaling an important arrival. The villagers rush to the main gate to see what's happening. Rob wonders if it's another attack, but recognizes one of the elders. Kira explains he's returned from a diplomatic mission to the merfolk, and it seems he didn't come back alone. A delegation of merfolk arrives looking unique. The elder introduces Ambassador Fargul of the Merfolk Kingdom, who has apparently brought them a shipment of supplies. Though supplies might be a generous term for whatever that smell is, Riardan explains they're desperate with no time to hunt or forage. Riardan admits that at this point any food is welcome. Alia questions the wisdom of their recent feast, but Rob insists they needed the morale boost. The ambassador then approaches Rob, identifying him as the human and asking for a handshake. Rob obliges, only for the ambassador to get a little too personal with his questions. He quietly tells Alia the handshake felt a little invasive, but she just brushes it off. Apparently, their customs also include getting very hands-on with the locals. Alia quickly puts a stop to the impromptu face-squishing session. The ambassador then proudly presents his gift of premium seaweed from the depths. Riardan orders the junior rangers to take the generous donation to storage. But Rob can't shake the feeling that the ambassador is staring right through him. Rob admits to Volto that the ambassador's intense focus is what worries him. Later, the merfolk diplomat is brought before the Elven Council. His status confirms he's a level 35 diplomat and is currently feeling pleased. He apologizes, explaining they can't offer military aid. A story that Vulto immediately calls out as a lie. The ambassador then turns to the lead elder, asking about her vote to spare Rob. She coldly admits that for real assistance, she would have sacrificed the human in a heartbeat. Riardan steps in to defend Rob's honor, but the elder cuts him off, telling him to let her finish. She declares that since their allies refuse to help, she'll side with the one who actually saved her people. She warns that if they stand by and watch, their names will be the first casualties of the coming war. But the ambassador just smiles, noting she's grown fond of the human. Riardan cuts in, insisting his name is Rob. The ambassador seems intrigued, eager to get to know this Rob. He then asks for lodging, claiming his party is weary from their journey. The elder agrees, hoping a longer stay will convince them to help. Riardan then mentions the merfolk custom of embracing before parting. The ambassador seems confused but plays along, and Riardan gives him a hug that's a little more enthusiastic than he was expecting. He pats the dazed ambassador's hands, wishing him a good rest. The elder asks Riardan what that whole display was about. Riardan warns him to keep a close eye on the ambassador, having noticed a hidden dagger. The elder isn't surprised, noting that everyone carries a weapon these days. But Riardan clarifies the real danger. The blade is laced with poison. Elsewhere, Rob finishes storing the last of the merfolk's questionable supplies. Aaliyah thanks him for the help, eager to get back to training. He teases that she just wants to get back to her sword, and she admits he's right. She tells him to hurry, as everyone else has already gone back. But Rob stops her, telling her to look at something. He asks where the elders are taking their new guests. Aaliyah explains they're being taken to the lodgings by the stream. Rob offers a friendly wave, admitting he was about to introduce himself. But the ambassador just offers a cold, suspicious glare in return. A sudden screech cuts through the air, and the lead elder identifies the sound. A level 20 frenzied owl dives from the sky, its status confirmed as infected. The creature swoops down, and both Rob and Aaliyah wish they had their swords. The ambassador screams for help as the monster targets him directly. Rob prepares to intervene, but Aaliyah holds him back, telling him to look. The lead elder steps forward, activating a skill called Psychic Cage, and a ring of pink energy ensnares the creature in midair. The elder raises her hand, unleashing a powerful psychic blast. The creature is trapped in a sphere of pure energy. With a simple command, she banishes the monster from their sight, sending it hurtling into the sky, never to be seen again. Rob is impressed by the display, as Aaliyah confirms that's why she's in charge. The elder gives their guest a grim welcome to their monster-infested forest. The ambassador is clearly rethinking this whole diplomatic mission, but the elder just smiles, offering him a place to stay. Later, Aaliyah walks through the graveyard, her expression grim. She stops at the edge of a newly prepared grave. She greets her fallen friend, Menta. She pours his favorite tea, sharing a quiet moment. She offers a silent toast to his memory, taking a slow, somber sip. She admits she's trying to be strong, but it's been hard. A flashback reveals a memory of her defending someone. She recalls always putting on a brave face, even as a child, but her bravery often earned her a spot in the dirt, because deep down, she was always terrified. And Menta was always there to comfort her, even if he called her a crybaby. She admits she never wants to be that crying little girl again, and that's why she's always pushed herself to be stronger. A flashback shows her choosing her path as a warrior, but her strength often attracted the wrong kind of attention, forcing her to level up just to survive the constant bullying. She learned to fight back, her bloodlust growing with every victory. But now, with Menta gone, there's no one left to keep her grounded.
Still, she tells him that she's not entirely alone anymore.
Because now she has Rob. She makes it clear that Rob will never replace him, but he's become someone she can finally trust. Her quiet moment is interrupted by a familiar voice. She explains she has to go train with the old grump. With a final promise, she leaves her fallen friend. Elsewhere, the morning's training is already underway. Rob spars with Vulto, their wooden blades clashing. But Vulto easily disarms him, demanding another round. The white-haired warrior offers a confident smile. Before immediately reminding Rob of the pecking order, he parries another blow from Vulto, his focus clearly elsewhere. He brushes off his arm, looking completely distracted. Vulto demands they go again, but Rob is clearly not in the fight. The white-haired warrior points out that he's completely off his game. So Rob just opens his arms, practically begging to be hit. But Vulto just walks away, refusing to spar with someone who isn't even trying. Rob realizes his brilliant plan has come to a grinding halt. Samira watches from the sidelines, advising her friend to stay far, far away. But Aaliyah steps forward, offering to take Vulto's place. She explains that Rob clearly has some kind of scheme in mind, and more importantly, she knows Rob does too. As they talk, the merfolk ambassador watches from a distance. His expression is one of pure, unadulterated curiosity. Rob, meanwhile, is lost in thought, recalling a recent conversation. He remembers Orntal offering him a fist bump, a gesture that the young elf noted felt different from the others. Rob admits he's been trying to crack a problem. Orntal asks if that's why he's been staring at his sword. He explains his tough skin skill is getting harder to level, and he wonders if the next blow needs to be a big one. Perhaps a self-inflicted one. For science. Orntal realizes the terrifying implications of Rob's plan, but Rob has a new idea, deciding to consult Elder Duran. He sprints off, leaving his friend to ponder his life choices. As he runs, he obsesses over gaming the system until a voice calls out to him. An unknown elf charges forward, his face a mask of pure rage. Rob draws his sword, ready to defend himself from the sudden attack. But the elf suddenly collapses, his body racked with pain. Our boy can only stare, completely baffled by this turn of events. The elf looks up, begging Rob to end his suffering, and Rob's own status reflects his advanced confusion. This day just keeps getting weirder. The elf looks up, his voice cracking as he pleads with Rob. He then throws himself to the ground, begging Rob to kill him. Rob can only stare down at the man, completely stunned by the request. He frantically insists that he's not a murderer, but the elf rises, axe in hand, vowing to force his hand. He swings wildly, and Rob realizes this situation is getting out of control. The elf screams that Rob is his last chance for redemption. For a moment, Rob considers using this to level up his skills, but immediately rejects the monstrous thought. As a crowd gathers, he insists he's no miracle and refuses to take a life. From a nearby window, Zamira identifies the attacker as Kenzatul. Kenzodal screams that with Rob here, he can finally atone. Rob is completely lost, asking what he could possibly need to atone for. The elf's face is a mask of grief, speaking of a guilt that weighs on them all. He drops his weapon, confessing that the scouring was their fault. The other elves in the crowd demand he be taken away. As they drag him back, he insists that the elves share the blame for the war. They try to silence his supposed blasphemy, but he screams that they only worsened the calamity that followed. Rob watches, reminded of his own grandfather's wartime guilt. Zamira turns, sensing something, as the merfolk ambassador watches with keen interest. The merfolk ambassador watches the entire scene with a thoughtful hum. The elf continues to plead with Rob to end his suffering. Rob tries to intervene, insisting the man needs a therapist, not a prison cell. But Volto coldly reminds him he has no say in their affairs. Rob can only watch as they drag the distraught elf away. He's left completely baffled by the whole ordeal. Just then, Elder Duran calls out to him from across the yard. The elder approaches, noticing Rob's unusually quiet demeanor. Rob admits he had a question, but now just needs a moment alone. He heads inside, leaving the elder to wonder what's on his mind. Inside the library, Duran closes the door behind him. He tells Rob he's already heard about the incident, noting that gossip travels fast. The elder explains that many survivors of the war are still haunted by guilt. Rob tries to change the subject, willing to discuss anything to forget what just happened. But when Duran almost takes him up on the offer, our boy quickly changes his mind. He gets to his real question, confirming that Duran is a powerful mage. He then asks the elder to hit him with a spell that will hurt, but not kill him. Duran's expression hardens as he flatly refuses the insane request. Rob tries to explain his logic, hoping to unlock a new magic defense skill. But the elder asks for his true motive, telling him to think harder about his answer. Rob admits his true motive is an endless hunger for power. The weight of this obsession finally crashes down on him. Duran confirms his fears, calling the leveling high an insidious addiction. Rob confesses he saw Kenzodal as a source of experience points. He begs the elder to end his life before he becomes a monster. But Duran refuses to punish him for a crime he hasn't committed. He simply tells the boy to go home and rest. But Rob wanders the village, haunted by Kenzatul's words of guilt. His troubled muttering catches the attention of a nearby guard. He arrives at the cell, ready to speak with the distraught elf. Kenzodal sees Rob's arrival as a chance for absolution, but Rob kneels, explaining he can't grant the elf's request. He insists he wasn't part of the war and has no connection to it. The elf clarifies he's not asking Rob to take the blame. Rob then shares a story about his own grandfather, a man who returned from war with scars no one could see. But Kenzodal breaks down, unable to live with his guilt. Rob explains that dying is the easy way out. He tells him that true atonement is found in helping others. He urges the elf to focus on the present, not the past or future. He tells him to remember the goodness inside himself. As he walks away with Aaliyah, A pair of eyes watches from a nearby window. The ambassador has been spying on the entire exchange. He pulls out a glowing orb, ready to make his report. A sinister smile spreads across his face as an image appears in the crystal. A horned woman on the other end demands to know if the human is dead. But the ambassador admits he's had many chances and failed to take them. He explains that this human is a tricky one, always doing good deeds. The absolute nerve of some people. He saw Rob show mercy, a quality he clearly finds inconvenient, and he decides it's time to force the issue with a more direct approach. He reports that Rob's reflexes are impossibly fast, and that the human even taunts him from a distance. The ambassador's frustration with his target is clear. He explains that his attempts to poison Rob have all failed. He claims the human uses young agents to test his food, a theory proven when a boy knocks the bread from Rob's hand. What a brilliant deduction. He even insists Rob has the power to repel giant axes. The horned woman on the other end is not impressed. But the ambassador vows that his next attempt will not fail. Back in the present, Rob is focused on his training. His wooden sword shatters against Aaliyah's, a clear sign of their power gap. But Rob's biggest concern is the splinter he just got. Priorities. Volta watches from the sidelines, glad he dodged this particular bullet. And from the shadows, the merfolk ambassador observes with a curious smirk. Orntal rushes to the rescue, ready to treat the life-threatening injury. He even has a salve with Rob's name on it. Now that's personalized service. But Rob waves him off, explaining his regeneration skill has it covered. He insists the phantom pain is real, as Aaliyah questions his very existence. Unseen, the ambassador pours a strange substance into a nearby container. His suspicious activity is interrupted by Riardan, who notes his interest in the trainees. Riardan narrows his eyes, suggesting the ambassador is interested in one specific trainee. The ambassador plays it off, claiming he's just curious about land combat. Meanwhile, Aaliyah is ready for another round, but Rob is completely exhausted. So Kira steps in, offering to take his place against her rival. Rob takes his break, walking away as the ambassador watches with keen interest. He grabs a drink while Orntal practices his archery in the background. For a moment, he enjoys a rare bit of peace and quiet. But Orntal suddenly shouts a warning about a stray arrow. Rob dodges just in time, spilling his drink all over the ground. The ambassador looks on nervously as Riardan approaches, his suspicions clearly growing. Riardan erupts, lecturing everyone on the importance of safety. But Rob just plays it cool, brushing off the spilled water. Riardan remarks it's a miracle no one's been killed, as the ambassador nervously agrees. He then turns his attention to the sparring ring, telling Kira not to hurt anyone. Aaliyah challenges her rival to go all out, refusing to accept anything less. The two warriors clash in a flurry of motion, their wooden swords meeting. Their blades lock, a fierce test of strength and will. Both elves are completely focused, their rivalry burning in their eyes. But Kira proves to be the stronger, disarming Aaliyah with a powerful strike. She holds her blade to Aaliyah's throat, asking if she yields. But Aaliyah isn't angry, instead asking Kira to teach her that move. Kira simply tells her to pick up her sword and try again. Later, Aaliyah sits exhausted with Zamira, complaining about her sore muscles. She then admits that she's actually envious of the swordswoman. Zamira is completely baffled, admitting she thought Aaliyah hated her. Aaliyah apologizes for her coldness, explaining it's because she admires Zamira's dedication. She confesses that she never wanted to be a ranger. It was just the path everyone chose for her. Zamira understands completely, saying Aaliyah's choice to follow her own path was an inspiration. Aaliyah finally admits her true dream is to be a swordmaster, finding a grim beauty in the craft. She quickly apologizes for oversharing, but Zamira just offers a gentle smile. Zamira tells her that the path of a swordmaster suits her well. The unexpected compliment leaves Aaliyah completely flustered. Meanwhile, Rob's friends stage an intervention about his hygiene. Tarek suggests a group trip to the hot springs, an idea Rob is very open to. But Riardan arrives to remind them about their cleanup duties. Tarek volunteers to stay behind, urging Rob to go on ahead. He considers inviting Kira, but sees she's having a moment with Aaliyah, so he heads off alone, finding the fabled hot springs. He stops for a moment to deal with his rebellious shoelaces. He turns to call out to his friends, but instead finds Ambassador Fargul. The ambassador reveals a set of sharp claws, declaring his patience has run out. Rob is completely baffled, wondering what he's even talking about. He leaps into the air, unleashing a volley of poisoned darts. Rob hits the ground, a strange feeling spreading through his body. The ambassador explains it's the poison finally taking effect, and with that our boy collapses, his luck finally running out. The diplomat stands over him, a silent, menacing figure. He's surprised to find Rob is still conscious, as the poison begins to liquefy his organs from the inside. He boasts that the toxin is strong enough to fell a massive beast. Rob hits the ground, completely paralyzed by the toxin. The ambassador turns his back, offering a final, confident farewell. He mistakes Rob struggling for the final throes of delirium, but Rob suddenly springs to his feet with a powerful punch to the face. He thanks the diplomat, a green aura signaling his recovery. The ambassador is stunned, realizing Rob has a poison defense skill, a skill that, thanks to this little assassination attempt, just leveled up. But the diplomat knows Rob's healing isn't instantaneous. He draws 2 daggers, ready to finish the job before Rob can fully recover. Rob desperately tries to reason with him, completely unaware of the political machinations at play. The ambassador stabs him again, explaining his class is all about deception. Rob asks who sent him, learning the Dragon Queen is footing the bill. He drives another blade into Rob's side, and politely asks him to just die already. But Rob glares back, insisting he doesn't go down that easily. He then delivers a powerful headbutt to the diplomat's face. The ambassador stumbles back as Rob pulls the dagger from his own gut. He then yanks the other one from his shoulder. You know, just another Tuesday. He points out that his opponent seems to be out of knives. But the ambassador just smirks, summoning a massive wall of water. Rob admits this has been an educational experience. The ambassador promises to teach him a few more things with a massive wave. Elsewhere, his friends are still on their way to the hot springs. But a familiar scream cuts through the air, and Aaliyah knows exactly who it is. The tidal wave crashes down, sending Rob flying into the river. He sinks into the depths, his wounds clouding the water around him. The ambassador swims away, leaving our boy to his fate, and the system rewards his near drowning with a brand new swimming skill. Talk about learning on the job. His friends finally arrive, wondering where he could have gone. But Aaliyah spots a set of strange tracks leading away from the water. Rob looks up from the depths, trying to call out to his friends. But the ambassador closes in, confident in his own element. He decides to conduct a little experiment on human lung capacity. But Rob still has one of the diplomat's knives, and he returns it with a swift strike to the back. He kicks the merfolk away, trying to create some distance. On the surface, his friends see the water turning red. Rob struggles for the surface, desperate for a single breath. But the ambassador grabs his leg, refusing to let him go. He drives his claws deep into Rob's side. The ambassador twists his claws, tearing Rob apart from the inside. He swims away, declaring the experiment a success as Rob sinks into the depths. Rob's consciousness fades, knowing his regeneration is useless against drowning. But as his vision blurs, he sees a figure descending from above. Volto arrives with a furious punch, sending the ambassador flying. As the two face off, Rob continues his descent into the abyss. The ambassador summons a massive whirlpool, ready to end this fight. The blast of water slams into Volto with incredible force. The diplomat smirks, confident he's handled the interruption. But Volto is already behind him, using the ambassador's own sash to return the favor. He grabs Rob's face, pulling him from the depths. With his friend in tow, he races for the surface and breaks through the water, gasping for precious air. He then uses the ambassador's own sash to drag him down. But the assassin slips away, leaving only the cloth behind. He vanishes into the depths, leaving a trail of blood. On the shore, Aaliyah desperately tries to wake Rob up. Volto admits the assassin escaped, as Tarek makes a brilliant deduction. The others can only watch as she pleads with their fallen friend. She holds his head, telling him he's finally safe. Aaliyah points out that Rob isn't breathing, and Kira prepares to act. She performs a desperate, life-saving measure. And suddenly, his eyes open, but he's not on the riverbank anymore. He finds himself in a vast, empty hall, wondering where he is. A familiar voice calls out, and a figure from his past appears. It's his friend Jason, alive and well. Jason explains he can't stay long, but just had to see him. Rob is overwhelmed with relief, admitting this is all he wanted. But a portal opens, signaling the end of their brief reunion. Jason tells him to take care, refusing to let Rob follow him back. Rob insists. His only goal is to go home and play video games with his friend. But Jason gently reminds him that he has other friends now. Rob remembers Orntal, Volto, and Kira. With a warm smile, Jason says he's happy to share. His voice fades, telling Rob it's not his time yet. And he's pulled back to reality by Kira's desperate plea. His eyes open, and his first thought is about needing a shower. Priorities. She pulls him into a fierce hug, scolding him for nearly dying. Tarek explains how Volto and Kira dove in without a second thought. But Rob's first question is for his attacker, learning the ambassador is gone. Rob, still bleeding, insists he needs to talk to Riardan. Meanwhile, Riardan is in the middle of a council meeting, discussing their dwindling supplies. But one of the elders dismisses his concerns, telling him to stick to his own duties. Riardan argues that his rangers need to eat, making it very much his business. But his argument is cut short by the sound of the chamber doors opening. He turns to find Rob and Kira, both looking like they've been through a war. Kira explains that Rob was attacked, a statement that gets everyone's attention. One of the elders scolds them for the interruption, but another quickly silences her. Duran asks if he's all right, wondering if another infected creature was responsible. But Rob reveals the truth. The merfolk ambassador was sent here to kill him. Riardan admits the assassin theory explains the ambassador's creepy fixation. Rob confirms the attack, explaining the poison still burns in his veins. The lead elder wonders who would be behind such a brazen attack. Rob reveals the assassin mentioned a dragon queen, and Kira figures she paid well. The council is stunned to hear the name of Queen Ragnavi. One of the elders demands they retaliate for this grave offense, but Riardan reminds them they have no army and no supplies to spare. Minor details, really. Duran agrees, insisting they can't afford to escalate the situation. The lead elder confirms she won't start a war with a greater enemy at their gates. She then declares that an attack on Rob is an attack on the entire village. Rob thanks the elder for her support, and she tells him to get his wounds treated. The treatment involves a bowl of wriggling, blood-sucking leeches, and these things are just as horrifying up close. A healer applies the creatures, explaining it's the best way to treat the poison. The healer then decides to leave them to it. For privacy. Rob asks about the Dragon Queen, and the elder describes her as a necessary, if cruel, ruler. She explains that such authority is something to be admired. But Rob points out that he listens to her, because she's earned his respect. She explains the queen united the land against the humans during the war, which raises an obvious question for Rob. The elder concludes that her role in the war was driven by a hatred that has clearly never faded. The elder recounts how humans assassinated the Dragon Queen's family. It was a cowardly and dishonorable act. She returned to find her home stained by the brutal attack. As she cradled the lifeless bodies of her husband and children, the queen made a vow that would change the course of history. She swore on their lives to see every last human destroyed. The elves were horrified, but had no choice but to agree. And so, with heavy hearts, they marched to war. Rob is stunned by her knowledge, but she explains it was for a school paper. He finally realizes that the scary portrait on her wall is the Dragon Queen. He realizes her school paper is a framed tribute to the queen's rage. The elder calls it her second most prized possession, a fact Rob finds deeply disturbing. But their conversation is cut short by a shout from outside. Elder Cesario has returned from his mission to Reviton, but he slumps over his horse, clearly in distress. Even his steed seems to know that something is terribly wrong. The elf suddenly tumbles from the saddle, crashing to the ground. He looks up, his face a monstrous, corrupted mask of agony. Rob and the others can only stare in horror at his twisted form. As the lead elder cradles him, Rob realizes the burns are the Dragon Queen's handiwork. Volto confirms Rob's worst fears. The Dragon Queen wants him dead. In the council chamber, the elders argue over this clear act of war, but with no other choice, they decide to accelerate the trainees' progress. And so, a new day of intense training begins. Rob complains that this is somehow worse than being poisoned. Riardan gathers the trainees, reminding them of the stakes. He then reveals a new gift from the village artificer. The trainees stare in awe at the rare enchanted amulet. Riardan explains it should be worn by the one with the best passive skills, and his gaze falls directly on a surprised Kira. Riardan explains the amulet shares the party leader's buffs with everyone. But Rob has a sudden game-breaking realization. He declares the amulet can work with his fast learner skill. If he's the leader, the entire party will level up at a human's pace, an idea that is met with immediate and unanimous approval. Kira hands him the amulet, ready to test his theory. Out in the woods, Tarek levels up after a single kill, amazed by the results. He remarks on how addictive the power must be, but Rob warns him it's no laughing matter. Tarek sheepishly admits that sounded worse than he intended. Riardan then reveals the good news. They get the XP boost without the dangerous leveling high. Lucky them. Orntol spots their next target from a high branch, a giant spiky snail. Riardan orders the trainees to weaken the beast, but to leave the final blow for Aaliyah. He then settles in to watch, offering some truly inspiring leadership from the sidelines. Aaliyah notices Rob's quiet mood, and he admits it feels strange, that everyone now benefits from the very trait that once made them fear him. Just then, Tarek levels up by stepping on a bug, proving the amulet's insane power. The trainees surround their target, with Aaliyah reminding them to save the kill for her. She then tells Rob to go all out, and he promises to punch the snail right in its face, a plan that seems slightly less effective when the snail breathes fire. Rob dodges the flames as Aaliyah moves in for the attack. He lands a solid punch, calling out to Kira to set up the next attack. Kira follows up with a massive power slash, cleaving through the creature's shell. She's splattered with monster guts, a look of pure disgust on her face. She tells Aaliyah to deliver the final blow, leaving the kill for her. Aaliyah gladly obliges, letting her arrow fly. The shot lands true, finishing off the massive beast for good. And just like that, she's surrounded by the light of a new level. Kira explains the creature was level 27, a massive XP boost, but Aaliyah feels like she cheated, gaining so much for so little effort. Kira quickly shuts her down, reminding her to be grateful for the gift. But Rob tells them that if his leveling is cheating, then he'll gladly cheat for them. He walks ahead, promising he won't get a leveling high as he leads the way. But he suddenly stops, a look of shock on his face. He stares at a familiar cave entrance, a sense of dread washing over him. He explains this is the very spot where he first woke up in this world, and the place where he nearly lost his life. Just then, a dark wolf with glowing red eyes emerges from the shadows. Rob freezes in terror, recognizing the beast from his first day. The corrupted creature snarls, its eyes burning with rage. It transforms into a massive beast and lunges straight for him. But Volto leaps in front of him, taking the full force of the attack. The white-haired warrior holds the beast back, gritting his teeth in pain. Rob can only stare up in horror as the monster's jaws snap shut. Aaliyah dives in from above, driving her blade deep into the wolf's back. She lands beside a shaken Rob, asking if he's all right. But he's clutching his shoulder, though Aaliyah points out he's completely unharmed. He's lost in a flashback, horrified that Volto was hurt in his place. The memories of his first day come flooding back in a wave of terror. He remembers the endless swarm of spiders in the darkness, and the grief that followed, seeing Aaliyah mourn her fallen friend. He remembers the misery of his first kill, and the endless mountain of violence that followed. Kira gently reaches out, asking to help. He looks at her, his eyes filled with tears. She pulls him into a hug, telling him he's not alone. The others gather around, vowing to be there for him. The system offers to numb the pain, because of course it does. He closes his eyes, considering the offer. But he refuses, choosing to face his grief head-on. And with his resolve hardened, he walks back into the forest. He's stunned to find himself back at a familiar, dreaded location. Kira finds him sitting alone, overlooking the forest at sunset. She explains she sent the others back, giving him some space. He reveals this is the very cliff he fell from when he first arrived. It's a full-circle tour of his early trauma. He confesses that back then he was ready to give up completely. Kira urges him to open up and not hold it all inside. And so he does, admitting he's tired of fighting just to survive. He even vents his frustration at the world itself. The purple grass is a real sticking point. As she comforts him, he admits he knows he's being difficult. She tells him his sulking is completely justified. He admits he just misses home and his friend Jason. Kira asks him to tell her more about this important friend. He explains they used to have game nights together, a concept that is completely lost on the local elf. He clarifies it was just an excuse to hang out. The memories leave him feeling a deep sense of loss. She tells him it's good to talk about loved ones. She hopes he'll tell stories about them one day, and he promises he will. He admits that his time with her has been truly memorable. She teases him about the permanent dent he's left on her couch. Then she makes a surprising offer, to help him find a way home. Rob is overjoyed, asking if she'd really leave the village behind. She suggests a trip to the dwarves, and Rob is already planning the road trip. They share a quiet moment, watching the sun set over the forest. Night falls over the village, a rare moment of peace in this world. As they return through the gates, Zamira is there to greet them. Rob is completely drained, ready to sleep for a solid year. A relatable mood. But as he leaves, Kira turns to Zamira with a secret request. Zamira asks what she's planning, a sly smile on Kira's face. Rob looks at the couch, deciding he owes Kira a serious furniture upgrade. The next morning, he's woken by a familiar voice. He groggily opens his eyes, looking less than heroic. He sits up with a start, finding Kira standing over him. She smiles, telling him she has a surprise for him. She leads him into the next room, where all of his friends have gathered. Zamira invites him to take a seat at the table, and he realizes they've recreated his favorite memory from home. Game night. His face lights up with pure joy, all thoughts of sleep forgotten. Kira explains the rules as they all settle in for a game. Zamira explains the rules of their new game. The goal is simple. Don't lose all your chips. Rob draws his first 2 cards from the deck, and immediately realizes he's drawn a terrible hand. His card forces him to give away nearly all of his chips, a fact that Aaliyah is more than happy to take advantage of. Elsewhere, Riardan and Duran stand watch over the village. But Riardan fears a more immediate threat is on its way. Back at the table, Rob has somehow staged an epic comeback, proving his luck stat is still broken, and his fears are confirmed as riders arrive with grim news. The infected are coming. Riardan worries that a full horde is more than they can handle. He knows this battle will be a harsh lesson for the younger generation, and that many of them will not survive the fight. Inside, Kira celebrates her game night victory with pure joy. Zamira begrudgingly hands over her chips to the gloating winner. Riardan decides to let them have this one last night of peace. A final moment of calm before the coming storm. But out in the woods, the preparations have already begun. Riardan orders his rangers to fortify the village gates. He knows they'll need every log they can find to survive. The entire village mobilizes, turning their home into a fortress. They dig trenches and drive massive stakes into the earth. Rob asks what's happening, and Aaliyah explains the new defensive strategy. The lead elder worries it won't be enough, but Riardan is firm. He declares they will use every tool and every person they have. But Rob leaves the worksite, telling Aaliyah he needs to find Riardan. He instead finds the lead elder, Alessia, asking for a word. She tells him she heard about his fight with the merfolk assassin. He sarcastically apologizes for surviving, but she's surprised he held back. Rob insists he's not a murderer and wouldn't kill just for the XP. She explains that in their world, power isn't held by politicians, and that mercy is a luxury he can't always afford. Rob asks if she really wants him to level up at any cost. She reminds him of the last attack, warning that this time it's for their survival. She looks him in the eye, asking for a single crucial favor. She begs him not to hold back in the coming fight. Elsewhere, Riardan discusses the need to track the enemy's movements. Kira runs up to him, but he reminds her she should be training. She demands to be sent out with the scouts, eager to put her skills to use. But Riardan refuses, explaining the rangers are better suited for the task. He tells her they need her strength as a warrior. She's stunned, admitting it's the first time he's truly seen her. He tells her the path of a warrior has always suited her. His advice is simple: cherish the peace while it lasts. Later, Zamira sits down for a quiet family dinner. Her father asks if she's feeling unwell. A classic dad question. He offers to let her rest, his concern clear. She teases him, wondering how he ever managed to be so smooth with her mother. She admits that it's just pre-battle nerves getting to her. Her mother understands, recalling her own days as a ranger. Zamira tells her parents she admires Kira's choice to be a warrior, but her parents remind her of their family's long tradition of rangers, a tradition she seems to be questioning for the first time. But she quickly backs down, unable to voice her doubts. Elsewhere, Orntal helps a young elf with her own training. She activates a mana shield, ready for a test of her strength. He swings a pillow, which bounces harmlessly off the barrier, a truly vicious assault. She struggles to maintain the shield, her focus absolute. Orntal tells her to rest, worried she's pushing herself too hard. But she refuses, knowing she'll have to protect the safe houses on her own. Orntal agrees, telling her to try again, but this time without the pillow. Elsewhere, Zamira kneels alone in a training hall. She picks up a sword and an axe, her resolve hardening. She pushes herself to work harder, to be better. She trains so she can finally make a difference. She's terrified of being left behind again, so she swings her blades alone in the empty hall. She pushes herself to the point of exhaustion, but in her own eyes, it's still not good enough. With a determined glare, she prepares to go again. Her dual-wielding skill levels up, a small reward for her tireless effort. But she just grits her teeth, a grim smile on her face. And with a single word, she prepares to go again. Elsewhere, Tarek paces anxiously in their shared room, until Volto finally speaks up, telling him to stop. Tarek is startled, admitting he's too restless to sleep. His mind is consumed with worry about the coming battle. Volto tells him not to fret over the unknown. Sound advice if you can actually follow it. But Tarek is convinced he won't survive the fight. So Volto gets up, deciding a change of scenery is in order. He leads Tarek up a ladder to the roof, much to his friend's confusion. Volto tells him to stop worrying about the future and focus on tonight. He suggests they might as well enjoy the view while they still can. Elsewhere, Riardan asks Duran if they have any chance of survival. The Elder reveals a secret project, a bomb based on Earth technology, for purely educational purposes, of course. He calls it a weapon of last resort, entrusting it to Riardan. Riardan takes the orb, as Duran grimly notes that humans are the same everywhere. The next morning, Kira sits alone in the village graveyard. Rob approaches, asking what she's doing there. He explains he's come to spend some time with friends. She offers to pour him some tea as well. He lays a bouquet of flowers at the grave, paying his respects. Just then, a flock of white birds takes flight over the village. The scouts return with a desperate warning. The horde is here, and the first wave of monsters is already upon them. As the news reaches them, Kira makes Rob promise he'll survive. He agrees, the two of them united before the coming storm. The village's great shield hums to life, a final line of defense. Elder Duran orders the civilians to the shelters. The elves brace for impact, barricading themselves inside. A child urges their mother to flee to the shelters, but she locks the door, praying for her husband's safety on the wall. Elsewhere, Rob frantically searches for his best friend. Kira points out that his sword is right where he left it. He holds it close, admitting it's been with him since the start. Kira asks for a moment alone, and Rob agrees to wait outside. She looks around her home, worried about her mortgage. Even in a crisis, priorities. She just hopes it'll still be here when she gets back. Outside, Rob notes their small numbers, but Kira is confident in the Rangers. He then hands Riardan the last resort weapon from Elder Duran. Rob looks down at his bag of firebombs. He jokes that he'll use them on the first monster he sees. He admits that he once thought leveling up was his only goal. But now, as he looks at Kira's stats, he knows he's not just fighting for himself anymore. Elsewhere, Zamira says a final goodbye to her mother. Tarek nervously adjusts his gear as Volto tries to calm him. Aaliyah stands ready with a sword and axe, forgoing her usual bow. On the wall, Orntal looks out with a mix of fear and resolve. The defenders gather, their faces grim as they await the coming storm. Rob stands before the gate, vowing, this is the last time he'll open it. On the wall, Riardan shouts the warning, the horde has arrived. A tide of corrupted beasts rumbles through the forest. Rob notes their horrifying new look, and Kira agrees they've leveled up their creep factor. At Riardan's command, the archers let their arrows fly. The first volley rains down, finding its mark in the charging horde. The elven rangers stand firm, their aim steady and true. The corrupted creatures fall, pierced by the relentless assault. But the horde slams against the shield, a wave of claws and teeth. The first wave is cut down, their bodies piling up before the barricade. Rob wonders if they're winning, but Volto shouts a warning from above. A massive bat-like creature smashes through the shield with a terrifying screech. But Rob is ready, driving his blade deep into the monster's arm. Volto follows up, cutting the beast down before it can retaliate. But Rob's relief is cut short by a new shadow overhead. He looks up to find the sky filled with dinosaurs, because of course it is. The flying beasts crash down, their numbers cracking the shield. Rob is glad the barrier is holding, but Volto sees they're just regrouping. One of the creatures dives down, grabbing an unlucky defender from the ground. And in an instant, another life is lost to the horde. Rob has had enough of watching from the sidelines. But Kira grabs his arm, stopping him in his tracks. She warns him not to move as the ground begins to tremble. The earth cracks and shifts beneath their feet. Rob realizes a new threat is emerging from below. A massive infected burrower erupts from the dirt. But Kira is already on the attack, slicing deep into the beast. She explains her danger sense can sniff out these underground threats. With the immediate danger handled, she urges him to follow her. But Rob freezes as the ground beneath him starts to collapse. Kira screams his name as Rob sprints away from the chasm. But another burrower erupts from the ground, lunging straight for her. She meets its charge with a powerful cleaving strike, while Rob drives his own blade into the other half of the beast. He knows if these things reach the village, it's all over. They look over the battlefield, wondering if the wave is finally over. But the remains of the fallen begin to bubble and merge. Rob can only remark on the enemy's horrifying creativity. The corrupted remains form a massive, pulsating slime. It rises before them, a new nightmare born from the old. Rob asks if this new nightmare is worse than the last one. The system confirms it's a level 57 flesh amalgamation, a creature whose status is simply tortured. Back in the village, the elders struggle to maintain the shield's power, but one feels the barrier straining, its power fading fast. The lead elder declares they must pour their own energy into the crystal. Another objects, hearing the screams of the rangers outside the walls, but the lead elder is firm, reminding them of their own duty. Outside, the flesh amalgamation tears through the defenders. And from the sky, a new wave of flying beasts descends upon them. Orntal unleashes a glowing arrow, trying to hold the line. The archers on the wall take aim at the flying beasts. Below, the flesh amalgamation overwhelms the ground forces. One of the rangers screams for the others to kill it, but a tendril grabs him, pulling him into the monstrous mass. He's completely absorbed by the horrifying creature. Rob and Aaliyah fight back, slicing through its appendages. He dodges a volley of sharpened tendrils, but the sticky substance latches onto his sword. As the others shout a warning, the monster closes in, and Kira answers the call, unleashing her circle of death. Rob asks if she got its heart, but Kira points out it's still standing. The massive creature finally collapses into a twitching, defeated heap. but it begins to reform, absorbing another fallen warrior into its mass. Rob can only guess that the nightmare wants a round two. The monster unleashes a new attack, sending rings of dark energy across the battlefield. Inside the village, the elders pour all their energy into the failing shield. The flesh amalgamation lets out a furious roar, its power growing, and with a final deafening crack, the village's great crystal shatters. So much for their last line of defense. On the wall, Tarek watches in horror as the monster's tendrils reach for them. The attack slams down, wiping out another line of defenders. The flesh amalgamation crashes through the last of their defenses. Inside, the lead elder knows their final barrier has fallen. The monstrous slime pours over the walls, consuming everything in its path. But Rob and Kira stand ready, refusing to back down. Inside, the remaining defenders rush to barricade the gate. Volto rallies the troops, urging them to hold the line. They brace themselves against the heavy wooden doors, but the monster's relentless assault begins to splinter the wood. It seems knocking is no longer in fashion. The flesh amalgamation roars in triumph, its path to the village now clear. Inside the village, Tarek and Volto scramble to evade the monster's tendrils. From the walls, the archers can't get a clear shot at the beast. Zamira lowers her bow, realizing she's useless from this distance. She leaps from the wall, telling the others to be ready for her signal. She lands on a rooftop, ready to create an opening herself. With a powerful leap, she drives her blade into the creature's side. She grits her teeth, pushing the sword deeper into the monstrous flesh. The attack stuns the beast, giving the archers the opening they needed. Down below, Aaliyah teases Tarek as a piece of the monster splatters nearby. She warns him that every severed piece just grows back, gross and inefficient. Tarek quips that this is just like sparring, a sentiment Aaliyah does not share. Zamira is caught in the monster's grasp, screaming for the archers to fire. The rangers hesitate, fearing they'll hit her, but Riardan reminds them of their training. And with a furious shout, he orders them to take the shot. A volley of arrows rains down on the massive creature. Zamira endures the assault, urging them to keep firing, but she's slowly being pulled deeper into the monstrous mass. As the flying beasts continue their assault from above, Riardan orders his men to focus on the sky, knowing Zamira accepted the risk. Kira rushes forward, but Zamira warns her to stay back. Kira carves through the monster's tendrils. As Rob and Aaliyah join the fray, shouting a warning, Rob tells Kira they'll create a distraction for her. He screams for Zamira to duck as the beast gathers dark energy. And from above, Kira unleashes her circle of death. She lands beside Zamira, pulling her from the monster's grasp. Zamira offers a heartfelt thanks, and Kira seems almost flustered by the praise. But Rob shouts for them to get under cover as the monster retaliates. Its massive tendrils slam down, narrowly missing them both. From a safe distance, the elders watch the chaos unfold. The lead elder calls for the mages to lend her their power, but another warns the spell is too dangerous. She refuses to help her sacrifice herself, but Alessia insists it's an order. The monstrous slime continues its advance through the village square. Alessia pleads with her, holding a ball of blue fire, reminding her they all have a role to play. With tears in her eyes, the other elder finally agrees, ready to do it for the village. The elders surround the beast, channeling their combined mana into the spell. She raises the massive orb of energy, unleashing it with a final command. The blast of pure magic engulfs the horrifying creature. The shockwave sends Rob flying back, barely able to brace himself. He shields his face as the remnants of the spell wash over him. The lead elder, Farina, declares the fight is over. Another elder rushes to her side, calling out her name. He catches her as she collapses, telling her she fought well. She falls unconscious in his arms, her duty fulfilled. In the quiet aftermath, the survivors gather in the town square, but their moment of peace is shattered by a new tremor. Kira screams a warning as the ground begins to crack. A massive burrower erupts from the earth because, of course, there's another one. The mages are completely spent, but Volto tells them to fall back. Rob and Kira stand ready to defend the safe houses at all costs. From the rooftops, Orntal unleashes a massive power shot. Rob and Kira scan the square, trying to pinpoint the beast's location. But it erupts from the ground, sending Tarek flying. He and another ranger fall right into its massive waiting maw. But Volto leaps in, pushing his friend from the path of death. He lands beside a shaken Tarek, who scolds him for the save. Just as the main gates are breached, and the full horde pours into the village, the trainees are immediately swarmed, fighting for their lives in the chaos, as the massive burrower carves a path of destruction through their home. And Rob decides he's about to do something incredibly stupid. Kira screams for him to stop, but Rob insists it's the only way. He leaps into the monster's maw, telling her to grab his, but Kira can only watch in absolute horror. Last will and testament, apparently, as he gives a final thumbs up. The beast's jaws snap shut, swallowing him whole. Kira falls to her knees, calling him an idiot for his sacrifice. But Vulto reminds her the battle is far from over. Her grief turns to rage, vowing to avenge him. Inside the beast, Rob pulls out Duran's last resort weapon. As Kira screams that she's coming for him, he prepares to detonate the bomb. Inside the beast, Tarek panics, convinced they're about to die. But Rob reaches out, telling him to grab on. The young elf screams as his arm is consumed by the digestive fluids. Rob looks down at the acid, knowing he has to get out of there. He climbs the fleshy walls, wondering what the odds are of this plan backfiring. Outside, Kira carves a path through the remaining horde. Riardan compliments her skill, but she tells him they have bigger prey to hunt. He tries to reason with her, suggesting she can't save everyone, but she knows the burrower is still a threat, and she's going to end it. She leads the way, and Riardan admits he may have underestimated her instincts. Kira charges forward, vowing to tear the monster apart, as Riardan warns her to keep a clear head. She unleashes her circle of death on the massive, fleshy beast. The attack tears through its body in a massive explosion, but the creature's massive maw just looms over her, completely unfazed. She's stunned that it's still moving, as Riardan continues to hold the line. He carves through the smaller beasts, disgusted by the wriggling remains. But from the severed piece, a hand emerges, asking for help. Well, that's one way to make an entrance. Kira realizes someone is still inside the monster's remains. Rob emerges from the goo, just as Kira screams a warning. He raises his blade and unleashes a massive power slash, splitting the beast in two. The kill pushes him to level 18, unlocking a new passive skill that rewards him for taking damage. But the leveling high kicks in hard, and Rob struggles to keep his composure. Kira rushes to his side, pulling him into a desperate hug. He holds her close as the system rewards his quick thinking with a point in mind. Riardan approaches, admitting he was trying to convince Kira that Rob was already dead. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Rob just smiles, admitting he almost believed it himself. But with the leveling high coursing through him, he's ready for the next fight. Riardan warns that their brief reprieve is about to end. As a new wave of corrupted beasts charges into the village square, Rob just grins, telling his friends to take their pick. The system frames the next wave as Round 2, a fighting game Rob never signed up for. The village square is now a war zone, swarming with beasts from the ground and the sky. Tarek runs for his life, and the system rewards his panic with a new level in Flight of the Coward. But his fear turns to resolve as he screams a name, racing to save someone. He sprints toward an elderly couple, huddled together in the chaos. They try to comfort each other, knowing their time is running out. A massive, corrupted beast charges, ready to end their lives. But a flash of white steel cuts the monster in two just moments before impact. Vulto lands over the fallen beast, ordering the civilians to get to safety. He carves a path through the horde, a one-man defensive line. Aaliyah scolds her fellow rangers, reminding them this isn't a competition. She cuts down another beast, telling them to stop messing around. Tarek looks around, asking where Zamira is when they need her most. And as if on cue, Zamira arrives to save two young elves from a giant insect. The monster's head hits the ground, its threat finally ended. She turns to the terrified children, telling them to get to a safe house. She stands guard as they run, ready to defend their escape. But the kids just stare, clearly expecting an escort. Babysitting wasn't in the job description. She takes them by the hand, leading them toward the only shelter left. A shelter that is immediately blown to smithereens. Well, so much for that plan. A young elf girl raises a mana shield against a diving pterodactyl, but the barrier shatters, sending her flying to the ground. From a nearby rooftop, Orntal calls out her name, unleashing a triple shot. The glowing arrows find their mark, but the beast is barely slowed. Another ranger shouts a warning as the monster turns its rage on Orntal. He blocks its claws with his bow, telling the young girl to run. She screams for it to leave him alone, unleashing a blast of her own. But the monster closes in, its massive jaws ready to strike. Until a new warrior arrives, slicing the beast's wing clean off. He lands beside a companion, who seems more concerned about the rats. He points out a new swarm of rats, much to his companion's disgust. But a scream from inside a nearby house draws their attention. They find a family trapped inside, pleading for their help. An elven woman is cornered, her family already lost to the swarm. The leader, Lothran, charges in, activating a speed skill. Aaliyah leaps into the air, calling for an arrow from Tarek. He fires a shot straight up, a perfect setup for her attack. She unleashes a devastating strike, clearing the room in an instant. Tarek can only stare in awe, impressed by her skill. But the woman panics, realizing her children are still trapped inside. Lothran realizes they've found the woman's other children, and the system identifies their new problem, a level 41 rat amalgamation. Aaliyah grits her teeth, declaring that as rangers, they can handle this. Elsewhere, Zamira rallies a group of terrified children. She leads them through the streets, telling them to hold their ground. She scouts the path ahead, ensuring it's clear of monsters. With the coast clear, she ushers the children forward. A very responsible field trip leader. Two familiar faces watch as she brings the children to safety. It's her parents who rush forward, relieved to see her alive. The children praise her as a swordmaster, but her mother just asks where her bow is. She finally confesses her dream of being a swordmaster. And to her surprise, her mother accepts her choice completely. Their touching family moment is immediately interrupted by charging monsters. Her parents tell her how proud they are as they stand ready to fight. Zamira looks back, her heart full, ready for the battle ahead. She leaps into the fray, eager to prove herself as a warrior. Elsewhere, Aaliyah carves her way through the endless swarm of rats. But the rangers realize the amalgamation is too powerful to fight alone. The mother they saved begs them to go back for her children. As the horrifying pillar of rats continues to grow behind them, inside, two terrified children cry out for their mother. Aaliyah tells her team to get them out while she handles the distraction. She carves a path as her companions sprint for the exit. A firebomb explodes as she unleashes a flurry of blows. Her friends scream for her to follow them out of the inferno. She makes a desperate leap for the doorway. But a dark tendril suddenly wraps around her leg. The entire room is engulfed in a raging fire. Her friends watch in horror as she's thrown back into the flames. They can only scream her name, helpless to save her. Aaliyah shouts for them to get the children to safety. She offers a final, confident promise to meet them there. But the monster's grip tightens, dragging her back into the inferno. With a defiant grin, she turns to face the beast alone. Her friends race through the streets, wondering where she is. The children they saved look back, their faces filled with terror. They finally reach the safe house, or what's left of it. So much for a safe house. There, Orntal cradles the young girl, weeping over her sacrifice. But a dark shadow falls over them as the monster finally arrives. And from a nearby corner, Aaliyah watches, having somehow survived the flames. Her friends are overjoyed, relieved to see she's okay. But their relief turns to horror as the rat amalgamation consumes her. The monster roars and they realize their friend is gone. Tarek tells the others to hide, vowing to go back for Aaliyah. He and Volto charge forward, ready to be brave for their friend. Elsewhere, Rob and Kira face a new threat, the Lord of the Forest. Kira carves through the beast, politely asking it to die. Rob is sent flying, but still manages a casual greeting. Kira hopes he's not dead, wondering how the others are faring. But a new sight fills her with absolute dread. A massive, corrupted bear slams down on Kira with devastating force. The blow sends her flying, crashing at Rob's feet, who offers a very casual greeting. They both stare up in horror, unable to believe what they're seeing. The beast roars as arrows bounce harmlessly off its hide. From the rooftops, Riardan continues his relentless assault. The monster thrashes in rage as Rob pulls Kira to safety. He tells her they need to find cover and fast. As they retreat, Riardan lands nearby to check on them. But Rob notices Kira's mind seems to be somewhere else entirely. Riardan warns them the beast has their scent and is closing in. The massive beast just snorts, arrows sticking from its eyes. Rob tells Riardan to run, but the ranger refuses to leave his post. He points out the beast is level 47, with 2 more waiting in the wings. Fighting it alone is a death sentence, but Kira refuses to leave him behind. Riardan then delivers the devastating news. Aaliyah is gone. The words hang in the air, a heavy blow to them all. Kira can't lose anyone else, but Riardan insists that's why she must go. He asks Rob to get her to the shelter, a final request. He explains it's the duty of the old to protect the young. You know, so they can make their own mistakes. She hugs him, refusing to say goodbye, but he makes her promise to survive. He tells them to go, ready to show them how a veteran handles business. Rob pulls Kira away as Riardan prepares for his final stand. The ranger unleashes a volley of glowing arrows from the rooftop. The shots find their mark, piercing the monster's hide. The beast lets out a furious roar, its power shaking the village. It charges forward, its heavy footsteps thundering through the ruins. Riardan stands before the 3 beasts, lamenting their corrupted state. He draws his sword, vowing to end their suffering. He's caught between 2 of them, taking a devastating blow. With his last thoughts, he urges Kira to keep fighting and survive. Elsewhere, Lothran and another ranger run for their lives, but she tells him their duty is to help the others, not themselves. Night falls, and Volto desperately searches the ruins for Tarek. He calls out his friend's name, his voice echoing in the silence. He finally hears a faint response, turning toward the sound. He finds Tarek buried under a pile of rubble, urging him to keep talking. He pulls his friend from the debris, who can barely see through his injuries. Volto promises to get him help, but Tarek knows it's too late. He reveals a wound that no amount of healing can fix. As Volto breaks down, Tarek tells him he has no regrets. Volto calls him the bravest warrior he knows, asking why he took the hit for him. Tarek jokes that he couldn't let Volto be the only idiot, offering a final thanks. With his last breath, he tells his friend to look up at the stars. And under the quiet night sky, another warrior is lost. The next morning, the survivors have gathered in a safe house. Rob and Kira secure the door, finally finding a moment of safety. One of the survivors asks Kira what the situation is outside. Rob grimly advises that it's a stay-inside kind of day. Understatement of the year. He then asks Kira if she's checked the party screen to see who's left. But she can't bring herself to look, terrified of what she'll find. Rob steels himself, his expression grim. He tells Kira he'll look for them both. His eyes widen in horror as he reads the names. Kira asks who it is, but he can only try to comfort her. The system confirms their worst fears. Aaliyah and Tarek are gone. The news sends Kira collapsing to the floor in grief. But outside, the sounds of battle rage on... Rob kneels beside her, remarking that she's starting to sound like him. Just then, the wall of the safe house explodes inward, and a level 58 bestial chimera crashes the pity party. Rob recognizes the beast, wondering how it escaped the dungeon. But Kira's grief turns to rage, vowing to avenge her friends. She activates a skill and charges forward with a furious roar. Her massive blade slams down onto the monster's head. Rob follows up with a quick slash at its legs, but the beast holds its ground against their combined assault. Its snake-like tail keeps them at bay, forcing them to regroup. Kira asks if he still has his pack, a new plan forming. He pulls out a bag of explosives, his motto being, "When in doubt, blow it up." With a familiar war cry, he charges in to create an opening. The firebomb detonates, engulfing the chimera in a massive blast. Rob doubts the monster is dead, given how their day has been going. As the beast rises, Kira charges forward to end the fight, but its eyes glow with a renewed, burning rage. Rob realizes his firebombs didn't hurt it. They just made it angry. The chimera unleashes a torrent of fire right at them. Kira barely manages to dodge the searing flames. She worries about her cloak as Rob admits they need a new plan. Priorities. He shouts out his new strategy, divide and conquer. And with a taunt, he runs off to draw the monster's attention. He continues his taunt, calling himself a delicacy. The beast's snake-like tails snap in irritation, but the monster refuses to be distracted, its eyes fixed on Rob. So Kira unleashes a fiery slash, demanding its attention. The beast finally turns its rage on her, lunging forward. Meanwhile, Rob is pinned down by the creature's snake-like tails. Kira holds her ground, stopping the monster's charge. She realizes its tails have stretched across the square to trap Rob. The chimera lands a powerful blow, sending her reeling, and Rob barely manages to block a strike of his own. One of the snake-like tails spits a glob of acid onto his arm. The corrosive substance sizzles, eating through his clothes. The two massive snakes loom over him, ready to strike again. But Rob grabs them both, his grappling skill leveling up instantly. He screams, struggling to hold the writhing creatures at bay. Meanwhile, the chimera unleashes a torrent of fire at Kira. She raises her massive blade, bracing for the fiery blast. With a powerful swing, she cuts right through the flames. She calls out to Rob, checking on him in the middle of the fight. His grip tightens, the sound of cracking echoing from his hands. He admits the situation is less than ideal. His suffering earns him a new, pun-based defense skill. The system has a terrible sense of humor, but Kira charges forward, ready to even the odds. With a powerful slash, she severs one of the snake-like tails. The appendage retracts, its strange substance dissolving, but the other tail whips around, lunging for her instead. Rob manages to catch the hissing creature just in time, and with a final, desperate swing, he cuts himself free. He stumbles back, wishing he'd leveled up a bit sooner. Kira joins him, admitting that was a little too close for comfort. Rob declares he doesn't want whatever skill comes from surviving this. The chimera unleashes another torrent of fire, forcing them both to scatter. Kira blocks a massive swipe, complaining he didn't buy her enough time. The last snake-like tail lunges forward as Rob screams a warning. He intercepts the attack, his blade meeting the creature's hide, but the chimera's main body sends him flying with a powerful blow. He slams into the wall, his defensive skills leveling up from the impact. The system really does reward failure. He realizes that's what it takes to level up his tough skin skill. He struggles to his feet, bleeding from the brutal hit. But seeing Kira in danger, he activates his skills, ready to rejoin the fight. Kira holds her ground against the fiery assault. But as the last tail lunges, Rob shouts her name. And with a final desperate slice, he cuts her free. With the monster's appendages gone, Kira prepares to end it. She unleashes her circle of death, a whirlwind of steel. The massive beast crashes to the ground, finally defeated. Or not, as it gathers its strength for one last attack. It lunges forward with a powerful bite, aiming straight for Rob. But Kira intercepts the blow, her blade taking the full impact. The attack sends Rob to the ground, his battle finally over. He lies on the ground, his buffs finally wearing off. Kira stands over the massive, defeated beast. She kneels, relieved to find it still breathing. Meanwhile, Rob downs a healing potion, grateful to be alive. As he recovers, Kira tells him to get up. But he asks for just 10 more minutes, a very relatable request. She insists he needs to deliver the final blow, explaining that he's the one who needs the experience points. She's determined not to lose another friend in this fight. He argues she'll get a massive level boost, but she insists that's the point. He worries that 3 levels at once will push him over the edge. Kira just watches him, her expression unreadable. She tells him she hates speeches, but he's going to give her one anyway. Her speech is simple. He needs the levels, and they all believe in him. Rob notes her speech was very short, and she admits she's a fan of brevity. She explains that as a warrior, she doesn't waste words when there's a job to do. But Rob is lost in thought, fearing their friend's sacrifices will turn him into a monster. He pushes the thought aside, knowing he has to stay strong for Kira. He stands, finally accepting her faith in him, and she reassures him that no matter what, he'll always be Rob. Rob stands looking troubled, a monster's severed tail lying nearby. His face contorts into a monstrous grin as the system confirms he's still Rob, granting him the rare headsman skill and pushing him to level 20. His berserker class levels up, unlocking the rampage ability, and he reaches level 21, gaining more stat points. The power surge continues, his berserker level increasing again as he hits level 22 with even more stat points. He rapidly gains 2 more berserker levels, reaching level 23, the leveling high coursing through him. Rob is consumed by euphoria, admitting nothing else compares to this feeling, as his leveling high status intensifies to moderate. The shadowy manifestation of his addiction whispers, urging him to indulge in the intoxicating power. Rob clutches his head, trying to resist the insidious voice that tells him he deserves to keep leveling. His body glitches, a visual representation of his internal struggle, as the shadow looms over him while Vulto watches from a distance. Rob's eyes glow red, seemingly giving in to the shadow's command to embrace the joy of power. The shadow whispers to him, telling him to embrace the song in his soul. It asks what greater pleasure he could ever know, as Kira watches in horror. But Rob answers with a powerful punch to his own face. He collapses, screaming that he alone decides who he is. The shadow looms over him, insisting it doesn't matter. It promises that the craving and desire will always return. But Rob vows that he will fight it every single time. He finally collapses, his status screen a mix of exhaustion and grim determination. Kira rushes to his side, telling him she knew he could overcome it. He falls into her arms, the battle within finally over. He tells her she was right, that he's still himself. But their moment is cut short as the Chimera's remains dissolve. Rob offers a very eloquent summary of their new problem. The corrupted goo begins to move on its own, a new threat rising. It spreads across the square, trapping the other survivors. The substance begins to absorb the fallen, both friend and foe. Vulto is caught in its grasp, pulled into the horrifying mass. The creature grows into a grotesque tower of corrupted flesh. Rob and Kira can only stare up at the massive new amalgamation. It seems the final boss of this nightmare has finally arrived. The amalgamation roars, its many heads writhing in fury. Each monstrous face seems to have a mind of its own. Rob can only ask how they're supposed to fight something like this. Kira says they just need to buy time, then has a sudden realization. Rob watches the creature, wondering what it's doing. But instead of attacking, the monsters' heads turn on each other. The bear and the bull clash in a furious internal struggle. The beast is literally fighting itself. The entire grotesque tower writhes, tearing itself apart from within. Rob and Kira can only stare, completely baffled by this new development. Kira realizes the monster isn't fighting itself, but reaching for a portal. Its entire mass stretches upward, a grotesque tendril of flesh, and then it rains down in a shower of corrupted remains. The portal flashes shut, the threat seemingly gone for good. Rob is ready to call it a day, but Kira grabs his arm. Because a new portal has opened, raining down crystalline shards. The very fabric of the sky begins to crack and shatter. and a massive ethereal creature glitches into existence above them. It steps down onto the ruined village, its touch sending out ripples of power. Kira realizes the infection's true source, as Rob asks what they're even looking at. Kira can only utter a single terrified word: Blight. A being of pure energy, whose status screen is a corrupted poem about the taste of blood. The system glitches, struggling to process Rob's massive level jump. His status is a cocktail of exhaustion, grief, and pure horror. Fun times. From the ruins, the few remaining survivors watch the godlike creature. An older elf tries to pull the children back from the edge, but they refuse to leave while others are still in danger. Rob can only stare up, asking what they're even facing, and Kira confirms it's the source of all their suffering. The creature begins to hum with an overwhelming ethereal power. Rob is overwhelmed by the creature's presence, a feeling of pure wrongness. A paralyzing sensation washes over him, getting worse with every second. The blight gathers its power, a shadowy beast forming in its aura. He warns Kira that it's about to attack, urging her to run. But he's completely frozen, his body refusing to obey. Guess fight or flight forgot to install the flight part. The ethereal creature unleashes its full, terrifying power. A massive beam of pure energy erupts from its form. The attack slams down with devastating force. The beams of light crash into the ruined square around them, and the ground explodes from the sheer force of the impact. The blast tears through the village square, narrowly missing the last of the survivors. An older elf shields the children, telling them to look away. As the attack carves massive trenches through their home, Rob checks on Kira, who is thrown by the blast. She struggles to her feet, her vision blurred but her will intact. He tells her they have to get out of there before it sees them. Seems like a solid plan, but Kira looks up in horror, recognizing one of the other survivors. The entire village is a ruin, carved into canyons by the creature's power. Elsewhere, the elf from before tries to keep the children hidden and quiet. One of the survivors watches in terror, realizing another attack is coming. Rob and Kira stand alone in the ruins, facing the ethereal god. He looks back at the others, knowing they have to do something. Kira tells him to run, ready to create a distraction herself. But Rob knows she can't possibly survive a single hit from that thing. He realizes no one can, except maybe the guy who just leveled up 5 times. With a split-second decision, he dumps all 20 of his points into vitality. He activates his new skill, Rampage, preparing for a head-on charge, and sprints forward as Kira screams his name, trying to stop him. He races to meet the blast, a one-man plan against a literal god. The remaining survivors can only watch in absolute terror, as Rob stands before them, activating his skill to take the full force of the blast. The ethereal energy slams into him, his defensive skill shattering under the immense power. The system confirms that while most of the damage was nullified, a significant portion still broke through. The attack carves a massive trench through the ruined village square, and at the end of it, Rob is stunned to find he's still alive, earning a new skill for losing a limb. You know, as a consolation prize. He looks down to find his left arm is completely gone, his status screen a grim confirmation of his new reality. The massive blight creature looms over him, a silent, crystalline god. It begins to gather its power once more, its ethereal form humming with energy, and opens its maw, preparing to finish the job for good. The creature's hum intensifies, and Rob feels a new kind of pain. He screams as the corruption eats away at him from the inside. But a familiar blade slices through the air, as Kira slams her sword into the creature's face. The blow sends the massive being reeling back in surprise. She lands and shouts a warning for Rob to cover his ears. She leaps into the air, ready to face the godlike entity alone, and brings her massive blade down with all her might. Rob can only watch, begging her not to sacrifice herself for him. But the blight retaliates with a swift, devastating swipe of its claws. She braces her unbreakable blade against the creature's full might. Rob knows that even if the sword survives, the sheer force will crush her. But from the ruins, a single glowing arrow streaks through the air. It strikes the blight, creating a massive, blinding explosion. The creature's attack is deflected, carving a new canyon into the earth. Kira and Rob can only stare, completely baffled by their last-second save. From the rooftops, a familiar white-haired warrior vows to end the slaughter. It's Vulto, his eyes burning with rage as he prepares another shot. He stands as the last line of defense, refusing to let another friend fall. The blight lets out an otherworldly cry, its attention now divided. Vulto lets another arrow fly, a streak of gold against the night. The glowing shot spirals toward the ethereal god. He activates a skill, pushing past his own limits, and the attack finds its mark, shattering the creature's form. He declares that a ranger never misses.
Meanwhile, the remaining survivors are urged to find cover.
But Kira spots Riardan still fighting in the distance. Volto prepares another volley, hopefully with good dental insurance. The Blight's form is cracked, but far from broken. It unleashes a piercing cry that cripples the survivors. The sound cripples them all, a wave of pure agony washing over the survivors. Rob clutches his head, calling out to Riardan as the noise threatens to tear them apart. The veteran ranger coughs up a volley of arrows, definitely not the standard way to reload. Even Kira collapses, her massive sword falling beside her. She grits her teeth, trying to fight through the overwhelming pain. But a hand reaches out, trying to steady her. It's Rob, urging her to take the shot and end this nightmare. But it's Riardan who rises, unleashing a final, desperate barrage. The arrows converge into a single blinding beam of light, and the attack slams into the Blight, engulfing it in a massive explosion. The combined assault explodes against the Blight's form, and the creature's body shatters under the immense power. It stumbles back but is still far from defeated. Riardan screams for Kira to fire, his own health rapidly draining, but he realizes with horror that their quivers are empty. The Blight retaliates with a volley of its own energy blasts. From the rooftops, Volto and another ranger prepare one last shot. Kira watches as their final arrow finds its mark. With no other choice, she leaps forward, demanding its attention, and her blade slams into the creature, cracking its ethereal form. But the force of the blow sends Kira flying backward. Another warrior blocks the shrapnel, telling her to get to cover. Rob realizes they can't even touch it, his own wounds bleeding freely. The Blight unleashes another blast, this time aimed at Riardan. The creature roars, its ethereal form crackling with immense power. With no other options, Rob throws his axe toward the veteran ranger. The Blight looms over them all, a god of pure destruction. Rob then spots a single arrow lying on the ground. He hurls it across the square, calling out to Riardan, who catches it with his teeth. Definitely not standard archery practice. He holds the arrow in his mouth, preparing his final shot. He remembers Duran's words, entrusting him with a weapon of last resort. And with a bit of battlefield engineering, he combines the two. He aims his bow, ready to deliver this final, desperate payload. His friends can only scream his name, knowing what's about to happen. He pours every last bit of his life force into this one, final attack. The arrow flies, a golden streak against the encroaching darkness, and it finds its mark, striking the Blight right in its core. Kira screams his name, watching the inevitable unfold, and the bomb detonates, engulfing the creature in a blinding flash of light. Rob holds Kira back as she screams in horror. The bomb attached to the arrow activates, and Riardan accepts his fate with a final, peaceful breath. The world is consumed by a blinding, deafening explosion. A pillar of pure energy erupts from the village square. In the aftermath, the ground is a shattered, empty crater. Kira can only whisper his name, her heart breaking. Rob is overwhelmed by guilt, feeling completely useless. He holds Kira, convinced he could have done more. He believes if he'd been stronger, their friends would still be alive. He looks down, convinced he's no hero as Kira's status shows she's barely hanging on. The party screen confirms the others are broken, unconscious, and heartbroken, and 3 of their friends are gone forever. But through his tears, Rob knows they have to keep fighting for the ones who are left. Just as Zamira arrives, her face a mask of pure horror, because the Blight isn't gone, it's just rebooting. The crystalline god reforms, its power crackling in the ruins. The other survivors see that it's wounded, but they know what that means. A cornered animal is always the most dangerous. With no sword and no arm, Rob's mind races, his quick thinking skill activating in a panic. Kira orders Zamira to evacuate the others, but she refuses to leave her side. Rob panics, realizing his best skills are useless with only one arm. A terrible time for a build check. Kira knows the creature is weakened, preparing to sacrifice herself for the final blow. Zamira accepts her friend's decision, vowing to remember her sacrifice. Rob's mind races, but his only available skill is diplomacy. He can't exactly talk this thing to death. Kira turns to him, her expression set, ready to say her goodbyes. He begs her not to go, reminding her of their promise to find a way home. But she tells him he can find his own way back to Jason and his game nights. He looks at her, his heart breaking, trying to find the right words. He admits he was looking forward to spending more time with her, and she thanks him for reminding her how to live. As the Blight lets out a piercing shriek, Zamira carries the last survivors away. But Kira tells Rob to run, saying it's her turn to return the favor. She activates a skill and leaps into the air, charging the ethereal god. With a furious cry, she brings her massive blade down on its crystalline form. She unleashes a whirlwind of strikes, carving into the monster's body. But the blight catches her sword with a single effortless hand. She pushes with all her might, but her blade begins to crack under the pressure. The creature unleashes a blast of energy, sending her flying backward. She collapses to the ground as Rob screams her name in desperation. And his diplomacy skill chimes in with some truly terrible timing. Rob is stunned that his skill can talk, questioning the timing of this new development. But the skill insists he use it now or Kira will die. With no other choice, he activates diplomacy, which suggests a less than friendly approach. He looks the godlike being in the eye and calls it a failure. And to everyone's surprise, the creature actually stops to listen. Rob presses his advantage, mocking its grand plan for falling apart so quickly. He taunts its wasted power, and his diplomacy skill levels up from the sheer audacity. He reminds it that it was defeated by a single half-dead ranger. He calls out its arrogance, promising it will never taste victory again. But it seems the blight has heard just about enough of his pep talk. The blight's crystalline form begins to crack and splinter. Rob can't believe his taunts actually worked. The creature continues to destabilize before him, but its core glows brighter, gathering immense power. He realizes his mistake as the creature prepares a massive laser. So much for diplomacy. He screams for Kira to get the others to safety. She watches in horror as he sprints toward the god, promising he has a plan. He gains a new skill, deception, but has no time to read the fine print. The blight unleashes its attack, and Rob knows he has to tank it. The blast slams into him, sending him flying across the ruins. Rob hits the ground, his status screen a laundry list of terrible things. But he grits his teeth, knowing he just has to reach his destination. The blight gathers its power for another devastating blast. He activates a skill and sprints away, his speed leveling up on the fly. The attack slams down, narrowly missing him as he dives for cover. He races through the ruined streets, the ethereal god hot on his heels. He finally reaches his destination, a familiar sight in the town square. It's the massive crystal, the one thing he believes can withstand the attack. But the blight is already preparing to fire again. He takes cover, hoping his desperate gamble pays off. The blast slams into the crystal with devastating force. A beam of pure energy carves a path through the ruined village. Rob braces himself behind it, trying to hold on. He screams as the sheer power threatens to overwhelm him, and the massive crystal begins to crack under the strain. He grimly accepts that his plan is officially going south. The cracks spread, the sound echoing through the square. He wonders if this is the end, and his diplomacy skill offers zero comfort. And with a final deafening shatter, his last line of defense is gone. The blight roars in triumph, its path now completely clear. Rob screams as the energy from the shattered crystal consumes him. His very being is torn apart, unraveling in a cosmic void. He's reduced to a mere ribbon of existence, and is pulled into a swirling ethereal vortex. Elsewhere, a powerful voice declares the curtain has finally fallen. Two hooded figures discuss Rob's impossible odds of survival. One notes his chances of being chosen were even worse. So much for good karma. Another accuses him of rigging the game in Rob's favor, but the figure insists he has no such power over fate. He warns that no one can control circumstance, and those who try will regret it. The figure explains that sometimes they can see the strings of fate, but they cannot control them, only observe their dance. The others discuss their own concerns, one of them clearly a sore loser. But in the void, Rob's hand twitches, a single sign of defiance. The lead figure senses the disturbance, finding it highly unusual. Another asks for confirmation that the human is truly gone. The first insists he is, but admits his soul has yet to check in. Minor paperwork issue, I'm sure. Rob floats in the endless space, seemingly at peace, until his body tenses, drawing a breath that shouldn't be possible, and his eyes snap open, gasping for life in the heart of the void. One of the cosmic beings demands a coin flip to decide Rob's fate. A golden coin is tossed into the void. It tumbles through the endless space, spinning slowly, but instead of landing, it balances perfectly on its edge. Rob looks up as a massive, glitching power rewrites his very existence. The hooded figure can only ask what this impossible outcome means. A scream is torn from Rob's throat as raw energy floods his being, and his soul is reconstituted with a cheerful, "Have a nice day" from the system. The cosmic beings can only watch in frustration as their game is broken. The scene then shifts to a peaceful field, where a snail enjoys the morning sun. Rob's eyes snap open, his first sight a very confused snail. He sits up in a field of flowers, his head pounding from his cosmic reboot. And he quickly realizes he's lost his clothes somewhere in the void. But at least his favorite necklace is still with him. A small familiar comfort in this strange new reality. He then finds himself in a massive graveyard, a tribute to all the lives lost. He stands among the memorials, trying to understand what he's seeing. He finds a bouquet of flowers left on one of the graves. A grave that, to his surprise, is meant for him. But he rises with a defiant shout, his new status screen confirming he's very much alive. He checks his stats, noting the upgrades but questioning the new corruption attribute. He also sees a new subclass, Crystal Bearer, a grim reminder of how he got here. He wonders if he actually died, and if this is an entirely new body. The thought sends him into a full-blown existential crisis, as one does. But he quickly talks himself down, deciding all that matters is that his soul is intact, until he notices a new line on his palm, reigniting his panic. He throws his arms wide, vowing to live again with only a flower to protect his dignity. He wanders through the ruins, finding the once lively village is now a ghost town. He calls out into the silence, hoping for an answer but also for a bit of privacy. But a terrible thought crosses his mind. What if everyone is gone? He clings to the hope that Kira and the others are still alive, but his thoughts are cut short by a familiar, if unwelcome, greeting. He turns to find a group of elven survivors, all staring at the human in their midst. He offers an awkward smile, realizing some things never change. So he makes a friendly, if slightly underdressed introduction. An introduction that immediately sends the locals scrambling to cover their children's eyes. Rob, completely mortified, makes a simple and very reasonable request for some clothes, and someone mercifully tosses him a cloak to cover up. He learns the survivors have built a makeshift camp with the rangers out foraging, but their supplies are dangerously low, with only a few provisions left from Revaton. The survivors take stock of what little they have left. As Kira calculates, they have barely a week's worth of supplies. She complains about being forced into a logistics role, a job she clearly despises. Just then, a young elf runs up, calling her Blight Killer and asking for a decision on rationing potions. She tries to pass the buck to the elders, only to learn another ranger is dead. Lothran, one of the other surviving rangers, asks for a private word with her. The two of them step away from the others, needing a moment alone. And Kira immediately breaks down, overwhelmed by the pressure of her new responsibilities. She can't understand why they're looking to her, the same warrior they once distrusted. But Lothran explains that as a survivor of the final battle, she's their only hope. Kira vents her frustration on a wooden crate, as Lothran asks if she picked up that habit from Rob. She quietly admits that she did, his influence still lingering. She insists she's not Riardan, unable to bear the weight of leadership. Lothran points out the irony of their village's traditions, mocking anyone who wasn't a ranger. And with their home in ruins, she suggests it's time for a change. Just then, a messenger arrives, summoning Blight Killer Kira to the elders. She accepts with a weary sigh, her new duty calling. She finds the two remaining elders arguing over how to rebuild their forces. One insists they must incentivize civilians to change classes for the village's survival. The other turns to Kira, asking her to be the tie-breaking vote. Kira is completely flustered by the sudden weight of leadership, but with a heavy sigh, she accepts her new burden. She declares they will relocate, and then every single survivor will learn to fight. She vows that if the Blight ever returns, they will be the hunters. With her decision made, she turns to leave, ready to get to work. She steps out of the ruined hall, remarking on the absolute mess. But a sudden notification stops her in her tracks. A party invitation from a name she thought was lost forever. She looks up in disbelief, tears welling in her eyes as Rob approaches. He offers a casual wave, hoping he's not interrupting. Just back from the dead, no big deal. She leaps into his arms, overwhelmed with relief. Rob complains about her strength, not eager to die twice in one day. She quickly lets go, apologizing for the emotional outburst. She explains she thought he was gone forever, and he gently comforts her. He confirms he's real, wiping away her tears as she admits how much she missed him. He holds her close, his own emotions finally showing through. But the reunion is cut short as Rob asks the question he's been dreading. Kira confirms the losses he already knew, adding that only 2 elders survived. She explains that nearly their entire ranger force was wiped out, and that over 3,000 civilians were lost in the attack. The weight of the losses finally hits Rob, and he stumbles back. Kira insists it wasn't his fault, but he's lost in a sea of what-ifs. She admits she's been asking herself the very same question. So he offers a deal. They'll stop blaming themselves together. But she knows it's a promise neither of them can possibly keep. He concedes the point, and they share a quiet moment of grief. Rob then asks how they actually won, looking over the crater. Kira explains that his final stand drained the Blight of its energy. She recounts how the massive crystalline god began to crack, and then crumbled into nothing, turning the tide of the battle. She explains that without the Blight, the infected lost their hive mind. The creatures became simple animals, with some fleeing the ruins. Others turned on each other in a mindless frenzy, and many simply disintegrated, their corrupted shells finally failing. Rob remarks that they actually won, that the village lives, but Kira disagrees. She points to the crater, explaining that while the people survived, their home is dead. He insists they can rebuild, but she asks if he knows what a locus of power is. Rob admits he's never heard of it, but guesses it's probably important. Kira explains that it's the foundation upon which every village is built. They are the invisible, beating hearts of the world itself. She explains that without them, the land withers and dies, and the blight has poisoned the very one that sustained their forest. Rob realizes their home is destined to become an inhospitable wasteland. Elsewhere, a new swordmaster trains the next generation of warriors. She tells them the blade will one day feel like a part of them. The recruits stand ready, eager to learn from their new leader. But as they train, a familiar voice asks to join the lesson. The swordmaster turns to find Rob, alive and very much in the flesh. He compliments her on her blades, admitting he lost his own, and holds a brief, dramatic funeral for his trusty sword. Priorities. Zamira explains her parents finally approved of her dream, but she can't switch classes since someone used the crystal as a shield. Rob looks over the recruits, asking what they're doing. Zamira explains she's just following Kira's orders to get everyone ready. The trainees cheer, calling out his new title, Blight Killer Rob. Lothran explains that the survivor stories have made him a local legend. A legend who seems completely baffled by the idea of being a hero. The kids eagerly ask for a demonstration of his burrower-slaying technique, but Swordmaster Zamira quickly puts an end to story time. Rob agrees, admitting he's currently unarmed and in no shape to perform. He then asks Kira for a new sword, and she offers to show him what's left of the armory. She admits she never realized how much their fallen leaders did until now. Their walk is interrupted by a familiar face, Vulto, back from his mission. Rob proudly confirms he's alive and well, even showing off his newly restored arm. Vulto is overwhelmed with relief, tears streaming down his face. But he quickly excuses himself, and Kira explains that not everyone's recovery has been so easy. The weight of that statement hits Rob hard, just as another voice calls his name. He finds Orntol's sister, who explains her brother is unwell and needs to see him. As they walk, she tells him Orntol hasn't been the same since the battle. She explains his wounds are not of the body, but of the mind, leaving him trapped in the past. She explains this is where she brought him, a peaceful clearing. Rob finds Orntol by the water, asking his own reflection for a fist bump. So Rob offers a real one, but the young elf just stares blankly. Our boy realizes his friend is a shell of his former self. He sits beside him, offering to talk or just share the silence. And so they sit, letting the quiet of the forest wash over them. Orntol finally breaks, confessing he ran away and abandoned everyone. He's consumed by guilt, tears streaming down his face. But Rob reminds him he only ran to protect his family. The young elf breaks down, hating himself for feeling relieved to be alive. Rob insists Orntol is the least selfish person he knows. He tells him his actions were born from love, not cowardice, and that this world needs more people like him. Elsewhere, Kira oversees the salvaging of weapons from the ruins. Rob joins her, admitting his first day back has felt like an entire year. He picks up an axe, reflecting on the battle's heavy toll. He admits he misses his sword, and Kira jokes she almost stole it. Her expression then turns serious as she asks about Orntol. Rob explains that he tried to help, but healing will take time. Kira agrees, noting that many survivors, even Vulto, are struggling. Rob admits their pain reminds him of Kenzodal's anguish, a man trapped by a guilt he couldn't escape. He tells Kira he sees that same despair everywhere he looks. He knows there are no words to comfort so much loss, no way to bring them all back to a place of peace. And even with their swords dulled, the battle is never truly over. Kira then turns the question back on him, asking how he's holding up. He tries to deflect with a joke, but she sees right through it. She tells him if he wants to talk looks, he should start with basic hygiene. Ouch. He just remarks that at least he found clothes this time. But Kira admits she doesn't understand how he's even here. She explains they searched everywhere after the battle, but found no trace of him. They were about to bury his old notes because nothing else of him remained. Rob just thanks her for the flowers she left on his grave. She reminds him she only did that because she thought he was dead, and he confirms her assumption. He looks her in the eye, admitting that he did in fact die. A statement that leaves Kira completely stunned. But he's back, proudly announcing his new Crystal Bearer subclass. Talk about a respawn bonus. Kira is completely baffled by the very concept of a subclass. Rob worries that his casual resurrection might have broken her brain. Kira admits she needs a moment to process all of this. She tries to summarize his insane story about dying, waking up in another dimension, and getting a system-breaking upgrade from the crystal. Rob then casually mentions his new deception skill, and Kira immediately calls him out. But he insists he's only a level 1 liar, for now. She points out he's still using humor to cope with the trauma, and Rob admits he doesn't know any other way. He's lost his entire world, his friends, his family, and before this, he'd never even seen real violence. Now the memories of his fallen friends haunt him. Kira admits that she hates them for what they've done, forcing her to keep going when all she wants is to fall apart. She breaks down, crying that everyone who ever cared for her is gone. He holds her as she confesses how much she misses their friends. Rob reminds her that at least they still have each other, and they share a quiet moment of grief amidst the ruins. He promises they'll find a way to keep going. Together. She asks how he can possibly manage, and he gives a simple answer. As long as he's alive, he can keep moving forward. A promise he makes to honor the memory of the fallen. He holds out his hand, urging her to take the first step with him. Kira takes it, her resolve hardening as they stand together. He tells her it's time to move forward, to leave the ruins behind. She teases that his speech would be more effective with a shirt, as he complains about his ill-fitting pants. As they walk, she asks him to tell her about his friend Jason. She hopes to meet him one day, and Rob admits that after surviving all this, he believes anything is possible. His status screen confirms his new level and subclass, along with a mild leveling high and a touch of corruption. He then asks for a shirt, and Kira confirms she has one for him. The scene then shifts to a modern city, where a man in a lab coat looks out over the skyline. The man, who bears a striking resemblance to Rob, remarks on how lonely it looks as a device beeps nearby. The man resembling Rob, dressed in a lab coat, stands on a rooftop ready to resume his duties. Inside a hospital room, a crying child expresses a strong desire to go home. The man, now identified as Jason, shows the child half of an old game controller. He explains it was a gift from his best friend, who holds the other half. The child looks up, asking if this friend is truly his best friend. Jason confirms it with a warm smile, affirming their deep bond. He gently places a bouquet of flowers on a table, while the child examines the controller. Jason then prepares to take the child's temperature, asking for consent. Later, Jason walks through a hospital hallway, deep in thought, as a colleague identifies him as the portal guy. His colleague invites him to a celebratory dinner, but Jason politely declines for the night. His colleague teases him, assuming he's off to meet someone special, but Jason just waves goodbye, leaving his friend to wonder about the lucky girl. He walks through a public building, his expression focused, until a sudden camera flash blinds him. He shields his eyes, clearly annoyed by the unwanted attention. He tries to brush off the reporter, who insists the public has a right to know. Jason tells the man to back off, his patience clearly wearing thin. He finally escapes into a restaurant, asking for a table for two on the patio. The server asks for a name, ready to greet his guest when they arrive. But Jason quietly admits that tonight it's just him. The server is understandably confused by his request, but Jason clarifies he'll be ordering for two regardless. He sits alone at the table, a meal for two laid out before him. He thinks of Rob, remembering his friend's love for this place. He then pulls two bottles from his bag and begins his solitary meal, a quiet tribute. He explains that since Rob's body was never found, this restaurant will have to serve as his memorial, a place to share one last meal with his friend. He apologizes for his absence, admitting life has been chaotic. He's sure that wherever Rob is, things are even crazier. But at least Rob doesn't have to deal with the media circus, or the conspiracy theorists who think the whole thing was a hoax. He scratches at an old wound, insisting he knows what he saw. His expression is heavy with the weight of his memories. He remembers watching Rob get taken from this very spot, ripped away from him in an instant. He admits he's trying to move on, even considering dating again. And with a heavy heart, he declares he's ready to be happy, just as a sudden gust of wind blows through the restaurant. He looks at a strange mark on his hand, hoping it's a sign from his friend. A single tear falls as he vows to never forget, certain that Rob is still alive. He raises a toast to the empty chair, demanding Rob return before his wedding. Apparently, a puppet best man would ruin the photos. He tells him to take all the time he needs, but to make sure he comes home because they'll be waiting.